Dim the lights and get comfy as we dive into soothing yet thought-provoking AITA tales. Story 1. Am I the AH for telling my sister her baby isn't a real baby? I, 26F, got engaged to my fiancé on January 1st. I was very excited to share with my family, of course, and everyone congratulated me and my fiancé. I sent a picture of my ring to my family group chat as well as my Instagram, and everyone has been commenting on the fact I got a very big diamond. My diamond is a lab-grown diamond that is just under 5 carat. I specifically asked for a lab diamond as I believe they're more ethical, as you never know if a mined diamond is a blood diamond. My sister, 31F, was very excited for me, but as soon as I showed her my ring, her mood changed, and she was telling me that it was too flashy and that it's not practical and that it's too trendy and not timeless. My ring is a pear-shaped, solitaire ring with a marquee band, and I love it. My sister then told me that there was no way that my fiancé could afford my ring. True, if it was a mined diamond, it would be 10x the price, and my fiancé is a second-year resident, and that I should test to see if it's a real diamond. I replied that since it's a lab diamond, it was a lot less expensive. She then proceeded to tell me how lab diamonds aren't real diamonds, and since they're made in a lab, it doesn't hold the same sentimental value. My sister's ring is a small 1-carat mined diamond, and it's beautiful. I never said anything bad about her ring, and it suits her. I tried to laugh it off, and I told her that I asked for a lab diamond and that I don't want a mined diamond. When I said that, she started yelling at me that it wasn't even a real diamond in the first place, and that it was grown in a lab, not the ground. That's when, said by her logic, my niece wasn't a real baby then because she was an IVF baby and grown in a lab too. My sister and her husband had a lot of issues conceiving, as my sister had some complications with endometriosis. Their IVF journey was really tough, and they had multiple rounds and attempts, and one miscarriage, but finally got lucky and had my very healthy niece last year. I know my sister had a hard time conceiving. That was kind of the point I was making. My niece started in a lab, but she has beautiful meaning behind her life too. When I made the comment that my niece wasn't a real baby because she was an IVF baby, my sister started crying over the phone. Her husband then called me and berated me and told me I was insensitive and couldn't understand the depths of her emotional turmoil and that I shouldn't have started a fight over a ring. He even said I was ableist? Huh? I have endometriosis too. My mom says it's not a big deal, but I should let my sister cool off. I usually babysit my niece pretty often, but my sister hasn't been answering my calls for a week. My fiancé says, although I probably shouldn't have said that, I was justified. I didn't mean it seriously. I know my niece is a real baby, and I adore her and spoil her all the time. Am I the AH? 2. AITA for grounding my 15YO daughter after she colored her hair? As a disclaimer, I have nothing against colored hair or people who choose to color their hair. My hair was bright green as a teenager. LOL. My daughter Alexis, not her real name, is 15. She has been dancing recreationally since she was 3 years old and has been doing competitive dance since she was 9 years old. She has nationals coming up, which is basically a very big and important dance comp where studios from surrounding states come to this big convention center in the city and compete. She is also obsessed with Paramore, thanks to my husband, who has taken her to many of their live shows. She idolizes Hayley Williams and has wanted to dye her hair like Hayley's for a few years now. This year for her birthday, she wants to dye her whole head neon orange. I told her absolutely not because she's not allowed to hair any unnatural hair colors for nationals and other conventions/comps that are coming up. She is very well aware of this rule because it is the standard in the competitive dance world. I've already paid all of the entry fees and cannot get a refund for this year. I told her that once nationals and all the mandatory conventions are over, she can color her hair however she wants. She did not like this answer and stomped off to her room. I figured I would just let her be, and eventually she would come around. I was wrong. She went to a sleepover at her friend's house about a week ago and came back with the same bright orange hair I told her she could not have. I was cooking when she walked into the house and nearly dropped the knife I was using. I was extremely upset and asked her what she was thinking. She gave me some excuse which I can't remember, then rolled her eyes and said something along the lines of, "It's just hair dye. It'll come out before nationals." I was livid and shouted at her, which I'll admit I'm not proud of, and she ran off to her room in tears. She knows better, and I'm completely dumbfounded as to why she thought it would be okay considering nationals is in 2 weeks. She's washed her hair at least 6 times in the last few days, and the orange is still stuck. I bought color remover and let it sit on her hair for a good 2 hours, and nothings. I'm so pissed because now I'm going to have to take her to the salon and spend $300+ to get this color removed when I'm already over $400 deep in the hole after the fees for the competition. My daughter is currently grounded, still upset with me, and hasn't spoken more than a few words to me in days. She cried to my husband after I shouted at her, and now he thinks I'm being unreasonable and called me Momzilla. Am I being crazy about this? She knew the rules, and I even told her she could do the hair dye after we get this over with. If this color doesn't come out, she literally won't be able to compete, and I'll have wasted over $400. Edit. Looking at some of these comments, I just want to clarify that when I asked Alexis if she wanted to compete, she was very enthusiastic and told me yes. She has done nationals every year for a few years now and has loved it every time she has done it. I am very clear with her that since it is optional, she has the choice whether or not she wants to still participate, and I am not forcing her in any way to do it. I am upset because she told me she wanted to do it, I paid the fees, and now we can't back out of it, but also she will not be bailed to compete if the orange doesn't come out. Story 3. AMI, the AH for invading my sister's privacy because I don't want her to go to jail? I, 34F, borrowed my sister's, 34F, let's call her Lisa, iPad for a work course. Berry collection. For context later, we both work in the same industry, but Lisa is also working a second job, and both jobs require licensing and a clean criminal record. I was in the middle of the course, everything was dandy, until a Telegram message notification from a Tom popped up on the iPad. Was writing notes, so I impatiently swiped it away. However, the notifications kept coming, and by that time my eyes were traveling to the messages out of reflex. The notifications only showed replies from Tom, but whatever I saw was enough to raise alarm bells in my head. I can't remember everything, but this was what I saw. You have $1,000. I transfer in. You create account ALR, iClub88, give me your ID and PW. My VPN kept DCING, can you log in again? Been doing it for 6 years and I have never lost money. Don't believe I can't help you win some too. A quick search on the web would tell you, iClub88 is an online gambling platform. We don't gamble. I fought with the demons inside me for all of tens before I tapped into the app. I realized Tom is someone I know as well, and whose name was in fact Dave, 27M. Backed event. We got to know Dave in a work event recently, so I wouldn't call us friends. The first thing I noticed in the convos was Dave's incessant pestering for Lisa's nudes, which thankfully she kept saying no. But the tone of the entire conversation was sexual, and there was flirting on both sides. I consulted a close friend of ours, and from what we gathered, this is most likely the start of a money mule scam. The nudes requests are hopefully Dave being a horny little shit, but I fear there are more sinister intentions behind it. To cut the story short, I ended up confronting Lisa within a day by apologizing for going through her Telegram and then proceeding to tell her I think she's getting scammed. In our country, victims who are being scammed to become money mules still get a fine and jail term. Our close friend has a young cousin, juvenile, under investigation here. He also personally knows an adult professional awaiting sentencing. It is not a matter of if, but when she will be getting jailed. Because of this, her career is gone. I told Lisa the implications of losing licensing for both her jobs, which she has told me multiple times how much she loves. The response I got from her was a deadpan. Only a few years jail term, whatever. I'm going to attribute this to ego. When she confirmed that none of the money was hers, and the $1,000 I saw in the conversation was Dave transferring $1,000 into her account and lost it, I knew most likely that money laundering is involved. When I got to the part about the nudes and how the Telegram ID was not tagged to his number and why he's using a VPN, she got really pissed and embarrassed. She did add that she had since closed the account, so I should STFU about it. She hasn't spoken to me since. AMI? The AH? I am frantic. What should I do? Story 4. AITA for telling my wife off for making our home smell of weed before new clients come around. Background. We live in a country where weed is illegal, but not entirely frowned upon. We have been going through a rough time as our cat just died. She was very close to us. I run a business which involves people coming to our property frequently. My wife makes weed butter and bakes with it. I do not partake, but I have zero issue with her getting high. This morning we woke, and I could tell my wife was upset, mostly about our cat passing away. I stayed in bed for an extra hour with her to comfort and cuddle, etc. Then eventually I had to get out of bed, as I had a new client coming to the house. At the time of leaving the bed, her mood had improved. She was well aware of new clients coming over, as I had mentioned it numerous times. Fast forward, it's 10 minutes until the clients arrive, and I have just finished cleaning my office and prepping. I then walk into the adjacent room, and it reeks of marijuana. I immediately panic, because obviously it would look completely unprofessional to prospective clients that we are getting high. I quickly turn on the AC and spray perfume everywhere. My wife does help and offers the idea of scented spray, but she is also telling me to relax and that they are not going to smell it because the doors are shut to my office area. This agitates me further. I do not believe this, as I think the smell can travel quite easily, and that we might be accustomed to the smell and can no longer tell how intense it is. I am quite agitated, and my voice does raise. I do not shout at her, but my voice is louder than usual. I also tell her that I am disappointed in her for not having the foresight to see this problem. Fast forward, my meeting goes well, but I will never know if they were able to smell the marijuana or not. Afterward, I apologize to my wife for my agitated mood. I ask her to be considerate of the fact I was panicked and tense. She is upset with me for scolding her. I then, immaturely, rescind my previous apology because in my mind, if she is going to act defensive about this situation, then the gloves are off. We have no spoken since. So there you have it, a mild-mannered first-world argument at its core. 5. AMI, the AH, for asking my boyfriend to contribute to my doctor's appointment. My 25F boyfriend, 25M, and I have been together for almost 2 years. We bought our first condo together last July, and we're really happy. We have a great relationship and almost never argue, but when we do, it's about finances. My boyfriend has always been good at managing his money, but I like shopping a bit too much, so it's harder for me to save. Since we've been together, I've made a lot of progress in this area. He recently created an Excel spreadsheet where we track all our expenses. My boyfriend insists on always splitting everything 50-50 and making sure things are fair for both of us. We're both students with part-time jobs, and we earn about the same salary. Since we've been together, I've started experiencing frequent UTIs, about 10 so far. Before being with him, this had never happened to me, not even with my exes. I had to see doctors repeatedly to get prescriptions for antibiotics. We live in Quebec, so we have a public healthcare system, but the wait times are very long, about 12 hours if I go for a UTI. With school and work, I can't afford to spend 12 hours in a waiting room, so on 2 occasions I had to see a private doctor, which isn't covered by insurance. Some medications weren't covered either. I calculated that since we've been together, I've spent about $1,500 on UTIs. The doctor mentioned that this is likely due to how our bodies are built, with friction during intercourse causing bacteria to enter my bladder and lead to infections. I asked my boyfriend if we could share the $1,500 expense, because I didn't think it was fair for me to bear the entire cost when this issue only started after we got together. He categorically refused, saying it was my responsibility to cover that expense. His response frustrated me because he usually insists on splitting everything 50-50. The worst part is, I wasn't even necessarily expecting him to pay half, but I thought he could contribute at least a little. This discussion turned into a big argument, and I wanted to get your opinion on the situation. So Reddit, AMI, the AH? Story 6. AMI, the AH for telling my boyfriend that the tacos he made me weren't good enough? I, F22, asked my boyfriend M20 to make me tacos for when I got home later that night. I asked him to brown the ground beef and follow the instructions. He doesn't really cook, but I thought the task was simple enough. So I get home a few hours after he made the beef, and things are going well. I quickly chopped the veggies so we could assemble the tacos. I thanked him for making it for me, and we started eating. I ate a bite, and it tasted really bland and a bit chalky, so I asked if he followed the instructions. He said no, I just threw it together with some seasoning. So I asked him why he didn't follow the instructions, and he said I didn't know what instructions you meant. He could have asked me what instructions. Googled it? Looked on the seasoning packet? Anyways, I am kind of a picky eater, and I only eat food that tastes good. If food is just meh, I would rather not eat it, and he knows this. Also, I cook different dishes for him all the time and do my best to make sure they taste as good as possible. So I said, why didn't you look for the instructions or ask me? And he said, I don't care. This is when I got really upset and left the room. He soon followed me and said, what's wrong? Probably thinking I was overreacting. Then I told him, I asked you to do one thing and told you to follow the instructions and you didn't do it. And you know I only eat food that tastes good. I try hard to make you good food all the time. And I just wanted you to do it for me one time, and you didn't even try. He kinda got defensive and said he thought it was simple, and made it how he thought it was made. He said sorry and that he should have known better, but now I feel kinda guilty and like an ungrateful bitch. AMI? The AH? Edit. By I only eat good food, I mean that I take meds and a side effect is low appetite. So I only can eat if it's the exact thing I am craving or something cooked really well. The food he made was flavorless, so I was disappointed. BC. I wanted the meat seasoned. 1 the taco packet. Story 7. AMI. The AH for refusing to let someone else use my address? My partner's sibling, A, adores their distant relative, B, and wants to help B's kid get into an elite public school in our district, Arams, and B live outside this district. A is our landlord, and we pay fair rent, Arams. A is pressuring us to allow B to use our address so the kid can go to this school, assuming kid scores high enough on the admissions test. A decided to loop us into a text convo with B and put us on the spot asking if they can do this, instead of asking us separately about this first. My partner and I are in professions that are subject to background checks and ethical codes, and my understanding is that schools these days are much stricter about residency requirements. I don't want to put our professions in jeopardy. AMI, the AH for saying no? Story 8. AMI, the AH for not controlling what my daughter, 15F, eats? I, 43F, have a daughter, 15F, Cindy. This year, her sophomore year, she joined Color Guard, which is a combination of dance and spinning equipment, and marching band in the fall. Throughout the year, she's been steadily losing weight, going from 155 pounds to around 140. She's 5 feet 5 for reference. My mother had noticed this, since she often buys my daughter clothing for birthdays, Christmas, and just because. She asked me about why Cindy keeps asking for smaller sizes, and then accused me of allowing my daughter to fall into unhealthy habits, and called me a lazy, selfish mother for not caring enough about my daughter to make sure she's eating enough. I completely disregarded what she said, because by no means is my daughter restricting herself. She eats a little healthier to improve her performance on competition days, but mostly she eats burgers, pizza, cookies, and sugary soda just as often as most teenagers do. She just happens to be losing weight because she's getting taller and becoming more active. So AMI, the AH for not dictating what she eats even as she loses weight? Story 9. AMI, the AH for asking my boyfriend to keep his dog out of the room during intimacy? My 21F boyfriend, 25M, has a dog who is his absolute world. She's a great dog, super sweet, and well-trained, so no issues there. The problem is, whenever my boyfriend and I are being intimate, he sees no problem with the dog being in the room. The dog doesn't usually do anything during, she just lays on her bed on the floor, but for some reason, it makes me super uncomfortable. I feel like I can't really relax or enjoy the moment when she's there. It makes me feel like I'm being watched, even though I know that the dog doesn't really comprehend what she's seeing. I've brought this up to my boyfriend a couple of times, asking him if we could leave the dog in the living room while we were busy. At first, he just laughed it off and said I was overthinking it. When I mentioned it again, he got frustrated, saying that it was unnecessary and that the dog doesn't care. Last night, as we were getting into the mood, I asked, calmly, if we could put the dog out of the room, and he totally flipped. He said I was being ridiculous, and that I was making it into a bigger issue than it needed to be. He told me I was being controlling for trying to dictate where his dog could be to the kill. I tried explaining, again, that it's not about the dog. I really like her. It's about how I feel. But he wouldn't hear it, and accused me of being dramatic and unreasonable. The argument got so heated that I just left because I didn't want to fight anymore. Now I'm wondering if I am overreacting. I get that she's his dog and he adores her, but I just can't shake the feeling of unease I get in the moment. I feel like my feelings aren't being taken seriously. It's not like I'm asking for something outrageous. I just want to feel comfortable when we're being intimate. AMI. The AH? Story 10. AMI. The AH for telling a member of our friend group that she's a brat. I have a group of lady friends who plan regular get-togethers. Most of us are connected through Carla, not her real name, who is our unofficial matriarch. She plans the events, they are usually at her house, and when we do trips out of town, she pays for the Airbnb on her card, and we pay her our portion. The most recent upcoming trip has an indoor pool. We go do these parties and pretty much let loose. There's drinking and shenanigans. We're silly AF. To be clear, we're old ladies. Most of us are moms, and about half of us are grandmas. Carla asked how the group would feel if her grandbabies came for a swim in the morning. We established some guidelines, like not just Carla's grandkids could be invited, but only toddlers can come for the swim, and they had to be brought by a female, or female presenting. This is a ladies' weekend after all. There would be a strict time frame, and we didn't plan on curtailing our behavior, so fair warning, I guess. The group was divided. Some feeling like they would feel stifled and it would change the whole vibe. Others feeling like a morning time would not interfere with the craziness and it would be fun. I suggested that we do a vote, majority rules. Here's where I might be the a-hole. When the verdict was in, One person, we'll call her Jen, said she was out. She didn't want to come because the vote didn't go her way. I told her she was being a spoiled brat and that she was having a childish, petty tantrum just because she wasn't getting her way. Jen told me she didn't want to pay for something when she didn't agree with the way things went, and that I should respect her boundaries. This isn't the first time that Jen has said or done something sideways, but it is the first time I called her out. Now I'm wondering if I'm the one being petty. So Reddit, am I the AH? Story 11. AMI. The AH for refusing to let my sister bring her dog to my wedding even though she says it's her emotional support animal? I, 28F, am getting married in 2 months, and my fiancé, 30M, and I have been planning this day for over a year. We've worked hard to make it perfect, but now there's drama brewing with my sister, 26F. She has a small dog that she claims is her emotional support animal. While I understand the importance of emotional support animals, I've made it clear that our wedding venue does not allow pets due to strict rules. When I told her this, she got upset and said I was being inconsiderate of her needs. She argued that the dog helps her manage anxiety and that she wouldn't feel comfortable attending without him. However, we're already accommodating several guests with dietary restrictions and other needs, and adding a dog into the mix feels like too much. My fiancé is on my side, saying it's our day and we should stick to the venue rules. My parents are split. My mom thinks I should make an exception for family, while my dad says my sister is being unreasonable. Now my sister is threatening not to come at all if her dog isn't allowed. I feel bad because I don't want to exclude her, but at the same time, this is our wedding, and we've already made so many compromises. AMI. The AH for standing firm on this? 12. AMI. The AH for telling my sister that she is insane for not teaching her daughter English? My 20F family is originally from Sweden. My sister Kristen, 30F, was born in Sweden and was raised speaking Swedish and English. She and my parents came to the US when she was 10, and I was born not long afterwards. I was raised only speaking English. My parents did not bother having me learn Swedish because it isn't a widely spoken language where we live, and in fact when I was little, they had a rule that Kristen could only talk to me in English. They did this because they didn't want to hinder me being able to communicate with my peers. I visited Sweden maybe twice when I was really little, and don't have any recollections. Kristen, however, has a lot of fond memories from her childhood. Since she's moved out, she has regularly visited Sweden. She has been married to her husband, Eric, 30M, for about 3 years. Eric is also from Sweden and came to the US in his early 20s. Eric was also raised speaking Swedish and English, but is more comfortable talking in Swedish. They have a daughter, Elsa, who 18 months old and learning to talk. When they came over for Christmas dinner, I tried to talk to Elsa, but Kristen told me that I can only talk to Elsa in Swedish, but not English. I thought she was raising Elsa speaking both Swedish and English, but she told me that they are not going to bother teaching her English. I asked why, and Kristen told me that they want Elsa to be connected to her heritage and also because they plan on eventually moving back to Sweden. I asked if she had idea as to when they will move, and she said it could be 1 year or 10 years. Told Kristen that she is doing Elsa a big disservice by not teaching her English. She told me it won't be an issue as she'll learn it when she goes to kindergarten. I said that I can understand wanting Elsa to know Swedish, and if they had any immediate plans to move back to Sweden, then I could understand prioritizing Swedish over English. But since they don't have any immediate plans to move back there, she should learn both languages now so she can communicate with her English-speaking relatives in the US, as well as her peers and her teachers when she goes to school. I said that not teaching Elsa any English at all is insane. Kristen got mad at me and told me I am being xenophobic. I told her this would not be an issue if Elsa speaks English too, but because almost nobody around here speaks Swedish, she's hindering her daughter. She said that it's possible that by the time Elsa is ready to start school, they might have moved back to Sweden. My parents are mostly on my side, but say that they understand why she's doing this, and I was being harsh by saying that she was insane for not teaching her English and should be more understanding. I feel it is equally harsh for her to say I'm xenophobic. I think it's great to be multilingual, but one needs to be able to communicate with the majority of the people where they live. But now I'm starting to feel like maybe I was too harsh. Story 13. AMI. The AH for backing out of a wedding as a bridesmaid. I, 37F, was to be a bridesmaid for my cousin's wedding this upcoming summer. She won't invite her toxic parents, which I fully supported. But there were a few idiots in the family who thought she should let them come because family, and let bygones be bygones. They gave her CPTSD, so I always fully supported her. Someone gave her parents the time, date, and location of the wedding. Her stepbrother told her they knew and planned on showing up but wouldn't reveal who told them, so she changed the wedding venue and date. However, since she wasn't sure who did it and didn't want them to find out again, she went hunting for a rat, so to speak, and gave 5 different faux locations to 5 different suspects. I ended up being one of them. That close. The idea being wherever the parents thought the new location would be, she'd figure out who told. Turned out the real rat was our aunt. She told me and the others the truth, that we passed the test, and apologized, but had to sniff out a rat. I was deeply hurt. She suspected me. I've been close with her my entire life, and have never done anything to betray her trust, and am very hurt for being accused of something I didn't do. I told her I am resigning as a bridesmaid and won't be attending but will send a gift. She says I'm being unfair. She's traumatized and had to sniff out who the rat was. The only other option was to either uninvite the whole family or risk a panic attack on her wedding day. She said this when I suggested hiring security, if she saw them. Now, I said I understand, but am deeply hurt to have been treated as a bad guy when I never betrayed her trust ever, nor done anything wrong in my life to her. I've been nothing but a good and loyal friend/cousin, and to learn she doesn't trust me deeply hurt. Am the AH? Story 14. Am I the AH for telling my girlfriend that I don't care about her cleavage? I, 21M, have been with my girlfriend, 22F, for almost 4 years. We met when we were 12 and 13 in middle school, when she stayed with her grandma in my state for a year, and we kept in contact because of our shared interest. We were best long-distance friends, and we supported each other's dating lives in high school. After high school, we met up a few times and started dating the summer after our graduation, and have been together since. I like to say that we're a medium-distance relationship because we're 2 hours away during the school year, and a 2-hour flight when she goes back home. She went to a bar with her friends, and she dressed in a very cute black turtleneck and trench coat, and I have always loved her style, and have told her that plenty of times. She didn't drink at the bar because she was driving her friends, and after she drops them off, she calls me. We chat for a while, and she mentions that she wants to wear her contacts next time she goes to this bar for the full experience, and that she wishes her boobs were bigger so she could have a bit of cleavage. I tell her that I think that's cool, and that I don't really care if she has cleavage or not. I wouldn't consider myself a man who is into boobs, or most of the things men are usually into when it comes to physical appearance. I am a personality-first kind of guy, and whether someone has a flat chest or DDs never changes my attraction towards someone. This doesn't mean I don't care for looks at all, but something such as breast size really does not concern me. When I tell her I don't care whether she can show cleavage or not, she starts to take issue with it. She asked if I'm into her showing her cleavage or not, and I just tell her I really don't care, and that I do not have a preference on if she wears an outfit that shows cleavage or not. I say that I'll support her dreams of going up one more cup size, but at the end of the day I really have no preference whether it happens or not. She remarks by saying that she could be hotter with more cleavage, and not caring about cleavage doesn't make me cool. I respond saying that it's her opinion if she believes cleavage will make her hotter, but in my opinion she'll look great no matter what. I continue to support her desire for growth while telling her that I'll still love her just as much as I would whether or not that growth happens, and that I don't think bigger boobs will necessarily make her hotter. I kept telling her that if she wants to display her cleavage then it's entirely for her, and that she should do it for herself, just know that I don't really care. She tells me that I'm starting to make her feel unattractive because I don't care about her boobs or seeing her in sexier outfits, and I keep trying to drive home that I think she's beautiful, but whether you have better boobs or not doesn't mean I'll think you're hotter. Am I the AH for not agreeing that she'll be hotter and saying that I don't care? Story 15. Am I the AH? My best friend kid got married. I will try to keep this short. My best friend's son got married about 8 months ago. She had behaved very badly before the wedding. Nothing these two did satisfied her. If they didn't spend all of every holiday with her, she would throw a tantrum. Constantly told the bride-to-be that she wasn't family until after the wedding. So any family time at holiday, birthdays, and other events, she wasn't really invited. My friend professed to love her and was very excited about gaining a daughter. Fast forward to the wedding. Myself and my young, 8 and autistic, granddaughter attended the wedding. Everything seemed to be going well. There were a large number of kids invited, and they all behaved beautifully. After the wedding, Say a week later, my friend decided to tell me how horribly my granddaughter had behaved at the wedding. Was told the child had ruined the wedding. I was in tears. Understand, the groom felt like my nephew and I loved the girl he married. I apologized to the couple at the very first opportunity and was met with stunned faces and silence. I was asked why I thought this, and I confess, I broke and told them everything. My friend says I'm an A* times whole for telling her son everything. I found out recently she has been being cruel to her new daughter. The kids are moving away and are expecting. She has no idea. AMI. The AH for not telling her they are leaving? Story 16. AMI. The AH for not sharing my lottery winnings from a white elephant gift? The recent family Christmas party was at my 22M house this year, and about 25 people showed up. A traditional game this year was White Elephant. My family plays the dice version with some house rules for context. Anyone who doesn't have a gift by the end of the game will receive $10 as a gift. Trading gifts is allowed only with the $10 consolation gift. The game had a total of about 40 gifts. I ended the game with 4 gifts, and 4 family members ended with none gifts. My gifts were a space heater, windshield wipers, a 20-pound gummy bear, and a $50 Starbucks gift card. Of the 4 people without gifts, 3 of them got rejected, meaning only 1 trade was made. My cousin, 26F, ended with $50 worth of lottery tickets, but assumed they'd be worth nothing, and I don't go to Starbucks. We couldn't trade because of the rules above, and argued that the gift cards and lottery tickets had a numerical value, like the $10 gifts, so they should be tradable. The family agreed, and more gift cards were exchanged. Trading ended, and people began using their gifts, so I went to put my gifts back in my room and a quarter to scratch the $5 10 tickets. I wasn't expecting to win anyway, as I thought that scratching the second about to move on to the third. I did a double take as I realized I'd won $25,000. For a second I thought they were fake, but my grandma, 82F, who bought them, wouldn't do that. I sat in my room for a bit and decided to keep quiet about it, knowing how some family members might react. I thought about how to tell them throughout the party. When they asked, I said no and that I threw them out. The next day, the 29th, I asked my mom, 58F, to come with me to cash in the lottery ticket. She was surprised, of course, and told me that I needed to go to the casino. My brother, 28M, thought it was funny and tagged along. He proceeded to post snaps of me being handed $100 bills in the casino. Although I told him not to say anything because of the commotion it would cause, and that I'd share some with the family, he posted it anyway. An hour passes, and I'm pulled into a group chat of people from the party plus family members that couldn't make it. I said I'd give everyone who came to the party $250 and thought I was being selfish. For 30-ish people that attended, that's $7,500 right there. I felt that was fair. Family members who weren't there argued that they shouldn't be excluded. Others argued that $250 isn't enough if I have $25,000. After about 30 minutes of arguing, I was pissed and gave up negotiating. I told everyone that I'm sorry that they're not happy with your WE gifts this year and that the rule was that all trades are final. I kept all the money, put $15,000 in my savings, and invested the rest. Many of my family members are still upset with me, even as far as calling me cruel and heartless. I told them that if $250 isn't enough from a $100 limit, they're the selfish ones. AMI? The AH? Note that no household or individual family member is struggling financially. Story 17. AMI? The AH for refusing to sell baby lovebirds to my best friend? I, 20F, am a lovebird breeder and have been breeding for the past 7 years. I started when I was 13. I take my breeding very seriously. I have contracts in place for the safety of the birds, and I have strict rules in place for new owners, which include certain cage size, diet, and how much outside time they need per day. Well, my best friend, 21F, had gained interest in my baby birds from all the times I brought the babies over to her house. I hand feed, so they're with me 24/7. At first she asked if she could buy one from me now so she could hand feed herself. I refused and told her that because she doesn't have any experience with birds, let alone in hand feeding them, I couldn't put their life and their well-being at risk. But if she's still interested once they eat on their own, I will consider selling to her. After she's done all the proper research, she agreed, and she didn't bring up the birds again after that. Fast forward to after the babies were weaned, she asked if she could buy one. I agreed and asked her all the standard questions. I ask all my customers, especially those who haven't had parrots before. I could tell she was getting annoyed the more I asked, and when I brought out the contract and other papers to sign, she asked me why she had to sign a contract. I told her it was standard procedure and that it was for the safety of the birds. She looked over the contract, and that's when I mentioned the amount she had to pay, which was 150 USD. That includes the bird-eyed ring, DNA test, pedigree, and birth certificate, and they get a chop recipe for free. To say she was angry was an understatement. She was yelling and screaming that after spending so much money on all the cage and food that was required by me, she will not be paying $150 for some stupid bird, and that it was extremely disrespectful of me as her best friend asked her to sign a contract and not give her a discount for the bird, and that I was making it seem like she was a bad owner and a bad person. I calmly told her that it was not my intention to make her feel bad, and that just because she's my best friend doesn't mean I can bend my rules for her, and that if she's still refusing to pay and sign the contract, she cannot have any of the babies. I explained that it takes a lot of time, money, and effort into raising these babies, and that their safety and well-being comes first before anything else, and that frankly I don't see her fit to be the owner to any of the lovebirds I have, that if she's still refusing, can't even spend $150 on the bird. How can I be sure she's going to pay for all the monthly costs and vet visits in the future? She got mad and stormed out of my house. That was a couple weeks ago, and she hasn't spoken to me since. Our friend group is mostly siding with her, and maybe I was too harsh. AMI? The AH? Story 18. AMI, the AH, for going to a football game and leaving my son with my mom. My mom canceled on my sister. Earlier this month, my college played in the college football playoff, and I was blessed to go to the game over New Year's. My wife and I met at this college, and going to football games has been something we've done for years. We are season ticket holders and planned our fall weekends around games. And for years, my school has done jack squat and been fairly irrelevant. After 14 years together, my wife and I had our first kid last spring, a son. My mom, dad passed 4 years ago, can't get enough of him and adores him. She watches him 30+ hours a week while my wife and I work, something she asked to do. When we made the playoffs, we immediately went into planning mode to go to a game I've waited pretty much my entire life to go to. We got my mom to watch my son, but I had to strike a deal and give a favor. She happily agreed and was excited to have him overnight. Our first night away from him, our trip was essentially a turnaround trip over the New Year's holiday night, and we were gone 22 hours in total. However, in the lead-up, I found out my mom canceled on my sister to watch her dogs, 2 German Shepherds, on New Year's night. My sister was supposed to go to Vegas with friends for New Year's. This did not happen. She wanted my mom to watch her dogs as fireworks freaked them out. One of our babysitting rules is no dogs. This was a rule targeted at my sister's dogs, as I don't want them around my son. They were frequently at my mom's house, so my mom told her she couldn't watch her dogs anymore. This was 3 weeks before the trip. My mom suggested the neighbor watch them, her usual backup. But she didn't want the dogs at her house mostly alone with only periodic check-ins. My sister got pissed at me and begged me to cancel. I refused and she called me an asshole. She is also pissed at my mom. It's a real shitstorm of drama still. AMI? The AH? Story 19. AMI, the AH, for prioritizing my house over my boyfriend and his dog. I, 32F, have been with my partner, 34M, for 4 years. Back in October, the lease on his apartment was coming to an end, and instead of looking for a new place or resigning, he suggested the idea of us living together at my place. Now, I am an interior designer with a house that's completely paid off that I work out of. I started my own design business and used the basement of my home as a staging area when working with clients. When my boyfriend suggested moving in with me, I admit I was very hesitant to do so. My boyfriend has a dog, 6-year-old beagle, and while I quite enjoy the dog when at my boyfriend's place, the thought of it in my home gave me anxiety. I was upfront with my boyfriend about it, letting him know how much the aesthetics of my home meant to me, and that I didn't really see a pet entering my lifestyle because of it. He told me not to worry and promised me I wouldn't even know it was in the house. I still was hesitant to do, but after a couple weeks of conversation I agreed, under the condition that the dog is cleaned up after daily. He sheds like crazy, and is trained not to jump up onto any white or lighter colored furniture, all of which my boyfriend agreed. Well, it's now been just over 2 months, and I am absolutely miserable. The dog has naturally longer nails that even when trimmed and have completely ruined my hardwood floors. His hair is all over my furniture, and he has stained and dirtied all of my bedding. At first, I tried not to nag too much about it, as I understood there was going to be an adjustment period for the dog coming into a new house and being trained a new set of rules, but so far nothing has happened. My boyfriend was okay with the daily cleanup at the start, but now gets frustrated when I ask him if he's going to vacuum the hair every day. We ended up getting into a fight about it when he dozed off on the couch, and I woke him up to let him know I needed the vacuuming done before a client got to my house. He went off on me, stating I was too over the top about how my house looked. Who cares about the dirt and the hair? That my client clients won't care, and that I needed to chill out and stop berating him like a mother. I know I'm over the top about the cleanliness and presentation of the house, but it's not only my place of work and my income, it's also my passion. I then told him I don't think us living together right now is going to work, and while I do love him and want to move forward with our relationship, I don't want to have to make him choose between the dog and myself. He rightfully got upset, said some pretty hurtful comments, called me selfish and shallow, took his dog and is now staying at a friend's place. We haven't spoken in about 4 days, but I have had mutual friends reach out, all of whom, except one, took his side and think my expectations are unreasonable and that the way my home looks shouldn't come before my relationship. 20. Am I the AH for telling my fiancé her sister can't come to our wedding? My girlfriend 32F and I 28F have been together 5 years this year. We recently got engaged. During the planning, we were talking about whose name we would take. We decided to take my name as it would be nice to keep my family line going. When my fiancé told her family her mom was happy for her and thought it was a nice idea, but her sister Lucy was extremely rude. She said she didn't understand why my fiancé would take my name as she is the more masculine out of our relationship, and that it's not usually how it's done. My fiancé said it's a gay wedding, it doesn't have to be traditional. Lucy then said that wasn't the only reason she didn't want her to take my name. When my fiancé asked why, Lucy said, I don't like her. My fiancé got upset and told her we didn't like her spouse because he's not a good person and he's extremely rude, but that we put up with him because they are married. My fiancé told me all this when I got home. I was really angry at first, because I don't understand how she can be so blatantly rude and ignorant. But now I feel uncomfortable someone coming to celebrate us on our wedding day that clearly doesn't support it. For background, she has not liked me since my fiancé and started dating, and I cannot understand why. She really only comes over when she knows I won't be here. Story 21. AMI, the AH, if I don't force my son to see his dad a few times a year? I, 34F, have been divorced from my ex-husband, 39M, for 7 years. We share 2 children, a 9-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy. He left us for a 19-year-old. Didn't last long, 2 years. 2 years later, when he moved back into the area and bought a house, we were able to establish some consistency for the kids. Our son had a tough time with the divorce. At 4 years old, he struggled with emotional issues, even hurting himself. Over the years, things calmed down, and by the time the kids were 8 and 6, they had their routine, and things seemed more stable. My ex and I have managed well enough, usually arguing only when the kids weren't around. Our main issues stemmed from his tendency to make promises and lie frequently. In January 2023, he lost his job. He eventually got a job about 45 minutes away, with training for a store that was over 1.5 hours away. He began talking about moving halfway between our homes, which seemed reasonable. But after a month of training, he informed me he was moving 6 hours away, later found out it was over 8 hours, for a franchise opportunity. This news devastated the children, as we had been telling them he was just moving a short distance. Although he promised to visit on weekends, which he did for the most part. The weekend before his move, he took the kids to the zoo with a woman I had never heard of before. Back in DeKalb, before losing his job, he had mentioned bringing a woman and her teenage son to live with him. She was the one, he loved her, but when he lost his job, she left. The woman at the zoo was a surprise. When the kids got home, they mentioned her as Dad's friend. As usual, my ex was evasive when I asked questions. But eventually, after weeks of denial, he told me he'd married her. I was floored. He met her online in March, married her in June, and she had 5 children, none of whom the kids had met. My son went into therapy, needing support beyond just me, and my daughter cried for weeks. The summer of 24 was hard. My son was especially upset and decided to stop seeing his dad altogether. After a few months, he wrote a letter to his father, expressing his feelings, and agreed to try again after 5 months of no contact. Felt like progress for him to resolve the issues with his dad. My ex's new children, ranging from ages 5 to 13, wet now around all the time. It didn't take long for tensions to rise. My son didn't want to continue the visits, not wanting to be around the new family dynamic. After some compromise, I agreed he would see his dad every 3rd visit, which led to improvements in his mood. He became much happier, had straight A's, and seemed more at ease. Things took a turn when he became distressed about visiting his dad again. He explained that his dad treats his stepchildren more favorably. Both kids have expressed their discomfort with the situation. My daughter still wanting to try and my son being done. AMI. The AH, if I don't force my son to see his dad again? Story 22. AMI, the AH for refusing to buy Girl Scout cookies from my coworker? I, 36F, am a new manager at my office. I started about 4 months ago, and while I've been trying to get to know my team, I still don't have all the dynamics figured out. One of my team members recently asked me to buy Girl Scout cookies from his daughter, and I said I couldn't because I have celiac disease, which makes me allergic to the cookies. He suggested I purchase a box and give it to a friend or family member because it would mean a lot to him and his kid. The conversation continued back and forth, but we didn't argue, so I thought everything was fine between us. Then I find out that he's been talking behind my back about how bad of a manager I am because I'm stubborn and stingy. Apparently their previous manager used to buy a lot of cookies, so I look mean in comparison. I'm not close enough with my other coworkers, besides the one who told me about the gossip, to talk to them about this, but I get the impression they're on his side because one of them made a big show of leaving a plate of cookies they'd bought from him in the break room, telling everyone to help themselves and then saying directly to me, "This flavor is gluten-free, so feel to eat some." I wanted to keep the peace, so I just said thanks, but I didn't eat any because I'm pretty strict about cross-contamination with gluten. I worry that I made things worse by not eating them, but at the same time, I don't think I'm obliged to support his cause. My friends say I should just buy a box this time, and if he does it again, then I can stand my ground. But it's not really about the cookies now. It's about him trying to shame me into doing what he wants. AITA for not buying cookies from him? Edit 1. Thank you everyone for weighing in. I'm surprised by how many people have been affected by people selling things in their office. I definitely won't be buying his cookies, and I'm going to sit down with him to discuss the bad-mouthing. I think I'll wait to escalate this to HR because I'm getting the sense that he wouldn't respond well. It's definitely tough as a new manager and woman, so I'm determined to do this right. Story 23. Am I the AH for taking my infant from my mom and not needing babysitting? We were at a first birthday party and coming to nap time so low, 8.5 months, obviously exhausted and starting to get tired. Gave him to Nana, my mom, for a hold before we left while we packed bags, etc. She was holding him for about 15 minutes. Got some pics of them together when he started to whinge. He wasn't crying, but he was on his way. I leant over to grab him and my mom pushed my hands away and said, "He's fine." I said, "Don't push me away from my baby," and grabbed him and walked off. We said goodbye and left. I feel guilty now because he was fine, and she probably could have held him for a bit longer, but he was obviously tired and TBH. I don't want to deal with a crying baby if I can help it, so taking him from her was a preventative. Also, if my baby is upset or getting upset, of course I am going to grab him. I am his mom. Am I the AH? And was my reaction too harsh? I feel bad now. She is a great grandma and support for me, but she just annoys me sometimes. He's always been a very fussy baby and attached to my hip. Mom is constantly on me about why I should let them, her and granddad, babysit him, etc. for his and your own good, as in mine. I don't want him to be babysat by anyone, and I haven't had a reason to need that yet. My mom thinks that he needs more time away from me so that he can get used to other people, and he will be less clingy to me, and he will get used to being away from me. But we don't plan on sending him to daycare anytime soon, and I figure we will cross that bridge when it comes to it. I don't see how getting him babysat now will help him or me at all. He is still an infant. I don't care if he's clingy. Am I the AH for not giving my baby time away from me to get used to being away from me and less clingy? I think she feels like I don't trust her with him, but if there was anyone I would leave him with, it would be her. But the more she pushes, the more it makes me not want to do that. Story 24. Am I the AH for upsetting the bride by bringing up concerns about the bachelorette party budget? I, 25F, am a bridesmaid in my cousin's, 26F, wedding, and we've always been super close. Hot mess. I'm thrilled to be part of her big day, but after voicing concerns about the bachelorette party's cost, she's upset with me. The party is in Palm Springs. I bought a $480 flight to attend, but at the time, the only detail I knew was the location. No one mentioned how much the trip would cost. I assumed it would be manageable. 2 days ago, we got a group message with a full cost breakdown. $251 for the Airbnb. A deposit was paid months ago, but I didn't know the price. $130 for a party bus. $80 for a hibachi chef dinner. $50 for groceries and alcohol, plus more for a night out and swag-like t-shirts. Altogether, it totaled over $1,000 for each person. There are 10 of us, including the bride. I saw the message while going through TSA for an all-expenses-paid work trip for someone I may work for. For context, my boyfriend and I moved in October after his promotion, and while my company let me stay remote, I was laid off shortly after. Money has been tight, so seeing this unexpectedly high cost was stressful. I messaged her that same day to open a conversation. "Hey, I don't think I can afford going to your bachelorette party. Amanda sent us the budget, and since I was laid off, it's out of my budget." A few minutes later, I added, "Actually, my dad offered to use miles for my flight, so I'll be going." She didn't reply for 2 days. When she did, her response shocked me. She said my message hurt her feelings and made her feel like I wasn't prioritizing her. She also brought up seeing me post about trips and a new computer on Instagram, implying I had the money but didn't want to spend it on her. She said this was a once-in-a-lifetime event and that my message felt like I didn't care. Her response rubbed me the wrong way. I don't think it's fair for her to judge how I spend money or bring up social media posts without context. The computer was a project I started long before my layoff but finished a couple days ago. The trips she mentioned were gifts or planned before my layoff. My boyfriend gifted me a San Antonio trip for Christmas, and my family paid for our Disney World trip to celebrate my grandma being tumor-free. She knew the significance of both trips. All I paid for were flights purchased months ago when I was still employed. I also feel like I wasn't given enough information to budget properly. I wasn't included in planning, and costs weren't shared until 2 days ago. A heads up would have been helpful. I explained all this in my reply and apologized for how my initial message came across. I told her I was caught off guard but still planned to come since my dad was helping with Miles. I haven't heard back yet. I understand the party is important to her, but her response felt self-centered. It's unfair to guilt me over how I've managed my money, especially when I've done everything I can to be there. So, am I the AH for bringing up concerns about the budget? Story 25. Am I the AH for Googling the answer to my question? I, 14F, have a stepsister who I'll call N is 16F. We live in Florida, and so of course my stepsister is trying to get volunteer hours for Bright Futures. For non-Floridians, Bright Futures is basically a semi/full scholarship to any Floridian college. She recently just got a job as a hostess at a restaurant, and she's been wondering if her work hours count toward Bright Futures hours. You need 100 hours to qualify. I'm currently in NJHS, which is basically a junior version of NHS, and our teacher told us that being paid to do a job still counted as volunteer hours for NJHS, NHS, and Bright Futures, so I told N that yes, they do count. My mom then stepped in, saying that my brother, C, didn't get work hours counted towards Bright Futures, and that I was wrong. The thing is, my brother graduated before it was allowed, so I corrected her saying it was allowed. I know it's stupid, but we got into a fight over if it's true or not. Eventually, I took out my phone to look it up for my stepsister, and what do you know? Allowed. My mom got super upset with me because I talked back to her, and Googling it was unnecessary. So now I'm left wondering, AITAH for trying to help my sister and Googling the answer to my question? Story 26. AMI. The AH wife wants to travel without luggage for Valentine's. I do not. We are a married couple, 30M and 30F. We are planning a trip for Valentine's to Europe from London where we stay. My wife chose Vienna and found a flight with Ryanair priced at £60 return each. She suggested we should take that flight for a 4-day trip. The flight doesn't include any luggage. With cabin luggage, the flight is worth $120 each, and she said we can manage without the luggage. She said she wants to experience traveling for a cheap amount and doesn't want to spend too much. For context, we are high earners and live way below our means, so this is not due to a budget constraint. I suggested that we should at least be able to take some cabin baggage, as I don't like traveling without clothes, especially for a 4-day trip. We got into an argument, and now she wouldn't talk to me. I told her I wouldn't want to go for a trip if this is how we would be traveling. AMI, the AH? Story 27. AMI, the AH for calling my dad at a function while I was with my mom? So I, 15F, have divorced parents, and they have 50-50 custody of me and my brothers. I was diagnosed with autism in 2023 and have struggled with loud noise, crowds, etc. Me and my brothers swap houses every Friday. We've spoken with my psychologist about how I struggle to be out multiple times a week, and how when I am out, I have a certain threshold that always manages to be crossed when I am at my mom's. This is one of the reasons I don't like going out with my mom, stepdad, who we'll call J, 2 brothers, 8 plus 13, and 2 stepsisters, 6 plus 11. Because she will say she understands my limitations during psychology sessions, but then as soon as it's put into practice, she thinks I am overreacting. She also brings up how I don't go out at all, so it doesn't make sense for me to be tired so fast, and I have to explain that my tolerance doesn't stack. To set the scene of the event, it was on Saturday and was my stepdad's friend's son's 16th birthday. I had met this family once or twice before, but I barely knew their names and couldn't hold a conversation with any of them. Despite this, my mom emphasized that they invited all of the family, even me and my brothers. It's summer in Australia, RN, so it was scorching. They have an enclosed patio space, which is where most people stayed around. It was like a hot box in there. I am incredibly sensitive to hot weather, so I was struggling as soon as we got there. The house had a pool, so my siblings and some other kids went in there while I sat on the side. After a while, I asked my brother to come inside with me. The combination of heat outside and heat inside made me want to cry. So me and my brother sat in the living room of the house where the aircon was to cool down. It worked for my brother, but not for me. And I was still insanely hot, so I started to get overwhelmed. When I asked my mom if she could drive me home, 10 minutes away, she said no, because she had been drinking. I said, "Can I ask Jay?" And she said no. So now I am starting to have a freak out as the heat and noise of the party start really getting to me. And my mom offers for me to go sit in a bedroom. I say no because if I were a host, I wouldn't want people in my room. So she says to go in the office. After repeatedly asking her to take me home to no avail, I just go into the office and cry. I call my dad and explain the situation and ask him to pick me up, but he's working an hour away, so he can't get me. When I come out a bit later, my mom says how disrespectful it was for me to call Dad. I say that I would have called her if I was in the same situation at Dad's, but she brushes me off. She lets me go sit in the car and wait until we leave. And on the way out, she complains about how I was fine with my dad, but then not with her. I have to explain to her how meeting with family and going to a house party full of strangers are two different things. I just want to know if I was wrong for what I did. I feel bad for calling my dad, but I feel like there wasn't much else for me to do in that situation. SOS. Story 28. AMI. The AH for refusing to speak to my sister after she verbally lashed out at me. So I, 30F, have never really been close with my younger sister, 28F. We have lived in different states for a decade now, and personality-wise, she has always been about doing things that seem cool. I often visit my family for holidays, and pretty much every visit, my sister has had an emotional breakdown of some sort, or started an argument. The last time, Easter of last year, I mentioned to our mom, 61F, that it was tiring, having to deal with her dramatic outbursts over something minor every single time. I should also mention that my sister is a notorious gossip and has shared several very personal things about other people, including tell our dad that our younger brother, 23M, was bisexual, something our brother had specifically not wanted to share with him. This has been a pattern with her when she has shared sensitive information and gotten defensive when called out on it. Forward to now, my sister and I had a brief discussion about someone she was seeing who is a trans man. I mentioned this in passing to my mom, thinking that my sister had talked about this with her. My sister messaged me completely irate, went on to call me pathetic and sad, implied I was jealous of her, said she only hears from me when I have complaints, a reference to my engagement breaking down, and said we never had a sibling relationship because she can't trust me. A lot of what she said was really vicious and hurtful. I reminded her that she's renowned as the family gossip, so it's a bit hypocritical, to which she responded that I must be trying to get even. The conversation ended after a few more terse exchanges, and neither of us have spoken since. My mom said that my sister called her later and went on an angry tirade about me, which my mom shut down and said she'd been very hurtful and unfair. I told my mom that I wouldn't be speaking to my sister again until I get an apology for the way she spoke to me. My mom is a bit on the fence as she understands my side. My dad is the biggest advocate for, just get over it, your siblings. AMI. The AH for standing my ground on this? Story 29. AMI. The AH for not allowing my dad to share a room with his sister in the care home? About a year ago, my dad, 80s, had to go into a care home here. He has dementia, incontinence, mobility issues, among other their health concerns. We did our research and found him the very best place. They take such good care of him, and he is thriving there. One thing to point out is that we made sure he has his own private suite. We felt he deserved privacy, since he does have bathroom accidents and has to be cleaned regularly. Of course, being the best facility and having a private suite, it is very expensive, over $12,000 a month, and they do not accept any type of insurance coverage except for the doctor's charges. Recently, my dad's sister has also gotten to the point where she needs 24/7 care, and my cousin agrees that the facility my dad is in is the best in our area. When he called them for information, he was shocked at the cost. He mentioned that his mom's brother, my dad, was a resident there. They told my cousin that my dad and his mom could share a room, and it would be $4,500 a month cheaper per person. My cousin then told the facility that they would be sharing a room. He just assumed we would be okay with it since it is a significant savings. My cousin did mention to us that his mom would be joining our dad at the home, but we didn't realize he meant in the same room. Obviously, the home called us to verify it was okay for my dad's sister to move into his suite. We were shocked and said no. We made it a point to get my dad a private suite. There was a waiting list for the private rooms, and that the fact that the other person would be his sister makes no difference to us. We feel that he worked hard his whole life and deserves the best, including a private suite in his last days. Now my cousin is upset because he feels like they may not be able to afford that facility otherwise, and his mom deserves the best too. I don't know their finances, but I know my aunt has some money saved, plus has a house that is fully paid off that can be sold. I just think my cousin is concerned about his future inheritance. Plus, his mom does have the option to share a suite with another female resident for the same discount, but he is concerned about his mom sharing with a stranger and also having to deal with another family. He said he wouldn't be able to afford a private room at this care home and would only allow his mom to share a room if it was with my dad. This home truly is the best, with a very high standard of care, and he wants his mom there as opposed to a less expensive place. AMI. The AH for refusing to allow my dad to share a suite with his sister, even if it means she wouldn't be able to afford this care home otherwise. ETA. This home is specifically for dementia/Alzheimer's patients. My dad and his sister both have advanced cases of Alzheimer's/dementia. I can't just ask my dad what he wants, since he can't understand. We have POA for him. He has good days and bad. Sometimes he recognizes that he knows us, and sometimes he doesn't. Now, I know he wouldn't recognize his sister at all, but may understand who she was if we told him, although he would probably keep forgetting. Story 30. AMI. The AH for refusing to chip in for a birthday present after agreeing to do so initially. Hey all, just a quick one here. Unsure if I'm pulling an asshole move, so thought I'd check before things got too heated. A close friend of mine has another friend. I only sort of know them, and they had a birthday coming up. I was invited for a bit of dinner, and I was very happy to come. Now, they mentioned that they wanted to all chip in for a nice bottle of alcohol, which I happily agreed to. Saves me worrying about what to buy for this person. I don't know all that well. The days leading to the party, I didn't get any communication from anyone, no texts or anything. I even followed up asking how much I needed to transfer, etc. Then like a day or two before the party, I got a text back saying, "We haven't bought anything yet." I was working all day. They had all started on celebrations, all having a day out together, and I still hadn't heard what was going on, even as I knocked off work and drove an hour up to where they all were for dinner. I didn't want to walk in without a present, and still had no clue if they'd even bought the bottle, so I just popped into the store and grabbed something. A funny little present that set me back about $35, and despite not knowing the person all too well, knew they'd like this one, or at least appreciate the thought. Anyway, they really liked it, we all had a good time, and went home afterwards. Now a few days later, I'm getting chased up to pay my part of the present. I explained that despite following up, I still had no clue what was happening, so I just bought my own thing, so thanks. But I don't want to have to spend whatever amount extra for someone I don't really know. They then mentioned that because I had also agreed to pay, they got 2 bottles instead of just 1, which would add even more to the price. I was not advised on this part either, and I still don't know what they're even expecting me to pay. I don't know what alcohol they bought, how fancy it is, and I won't even be able to drink any of it because they're all going to have an extra little get-together on a weekday night. I work the next day, so can't go out at all on those days. I get they'll be annoyed now that they all have to pay a little extra, but the lack of communication makes me feel like I'm not in the wrong. Maybe I should have told them that I was going to buy a present from just me, but by the time I had decided that, I believe they'd already bought the alcohol, wasn't aware at the time. We'd also agreed on 1 bottle, and now I'm hearing there's 2. Not sure what to do or say here. I've already pretty well decided that I don't want to throw any more money away. My guess is it'll be at least another 50 or so. Also note, initially when I agreed, I asked for an estimate of how much it would be, and they said they'd get back to me, but never heard back. Story 31. AMI. The AH for not showering farting when I was sick. My 25M boyfriend, 23M, who I live with, recently caught an asymptomatic case of COVID-19. He couldn't have known, he was exposed in a public setting and didn't even know to get tested. But I ended up getting sick with a heavy fever and some mild respiratory symptoms. Due to the fever, I was sweating heavily, but had the chills. You know what it's like. And I spent the whole time in a wearable blanket, think like a full-body Snuggie, to try to fend off the chills. In addition to this, I've had IBS my whole life, and when I'm sick, even the food that I can keep down gives me bad gas, to put it lightly. After a couple of days of being sick, my boyfriend told me that I needed to take off my blanket so he could wash it, because in his words, I reeked of sweat and farts, and he couldn't even bear to sleep in our bed, and had to sleep on the couch. I tried to keep up with a shower routine, but being so sick it was hard to stay upright long enough to even get through a shower. So, Reddit. AITA for not trying harder to stay clean when I was sick. As soon as I was better, I showered and cleaned everything I had touched, but I wanted to know if I should have tried harder when I was actually sick so that my boyfriend wouldn't have to deal with the stench. Story 32. AMI, the AH, for leaving the bathroom door closed after I pooped? Yesterday, I, M26, came home from a 13-hour shift. My heavily pregnant wife, F30, had her brother and his GF come over, and they were talking in the kitchen. Understandably, after a 13-hour shift, I went to the bathroom to take a shit. Said shit was very stinky. That is important for the plot. Even I thought so, and usually I am not bothered by the smell of my own poo. After I was done, I went out of the bathroom and closed the door. I closed it because we had guests over, and of course I didn't want them to smell my shit. The bathroom door is located right by the entrance to our apartment. They left shortly after. After that, my 8-month pregnant wife went in there to pee. As she entered the bathroom and started to pee, I heard gag reflexes coming from there. She stormed out of the bathroom saying she nearly puked because of the smell, and that it's my fault because I didn't leave the bathroom door open to air out. I told her that it's because the guests were over and I didn't want them to smell it. A fight broke out and she went for a walk. What do you guys think? Do you think it might be because of the pregnancy? Am I in the wrong? TLDR. My pregnant wife blamed me for almost puking because my shit was too stinky. Story 33. AMI. The AH for letting my husband remain homeless? I, 44F, fell deeply in love and married Anthony, 56M, during the summer of 2016 after a few months of dating. Now, I know, I learned from it. Everything moved so fast. He came in my life like Prince Charming. He seemed so perfect. He was a smart, gentle, loving, caring, hardworking, affectionate, attentive man. He was basically everything I said I was looking for, and more. He checked all the boxes except his severe anxiety issues, and never noticed how he was pouring it on so thick and was love-bombing me to the point I was blinded by the so-called love. We never argued until the day we said I do. Immediately after the wedding, he flipped a switch and was someone I didn't recognize. My family was even scared for me. He wanted me to himself and wanted us to move away from my family and friends. It felt like a lifetime movie. I took as much as I could, but we eventually separated around August 2016, when I found out he lied about everything about himself, including his name, age, where he lived, you name it. His whole background was fabricated. He even put a false social security number on the form for the marriage license, and has several aliases. He turned out to be a raging drunk who can't hold his alcohol. It began to happen so often within those 45 days of marriage. I was scared and wondering if he was on drugs, because alcohol doesn't do all of the mess he was doing. But when I found out he still lived with his ex the entire time we were dating, on top of everything else, she told me hurt me to my core. I basically married a stranger. His ex sent videos and pics for proof of their ongoing relationship and gave me all of the tea about him. He basically married me behind her back because they were having issues and he was trying to leave her. I didn't know any of this since we live an hour apart in 2 different states, and he always came to see me when we were dating. He ended up moving to Nashville after I kicked him out. He found a great job, house, car, etc. He was bragging about how well he was doing, and I was happy for him. He lost it all by driving drunk and crashing his brand new car. He's been homeless for over a year since losing his job. He's been living in a motel since then. I've even helped by paying for a room for a night to keep him out of the cold. I have filed for an uncontested divorce twice since being separated from him, and he still refuses to sign it. Every few months he'll message me about coming home and how much he's changed. Recently, that same ex sent me and him a friend request on FB after all these years. I honestly had forgotten all about her, but her name kept ringing a bell until it clicked, and I remembered who she was. I also noticed he accepted her request, and I figured maybe he's trying to live with her again too. I love him enough to care about his well-being, but I'm not in love with him anymore. AMI. The AH for letting him remain homeless? Or should I be the wife I promised God I would be? Story 34. AMI. The AH for not being reliable enough for my sister to use me as a backup kid caretaker in an emergency? Right now I feel bad about this situation while also feeling some resentment towards my family. Ameriking. My sister lives about 20 minutes from me, near our parents. There was a family emergency where she needed to meet my parents at the hospital, and taking her kids wasn't an option. She called me up at 6:45 p.m. on her way to my apartment to tell me she needed to drop off the kids quickly and run. I tried to tell her that I was not in the right condition for that. She told me it was an emergency and she had no other option. I begged her to call her mother-in-law. She said that wouldn't work. When she showed up, she stepped inside my apartment to hand off her kids. Like I told her, I wasn't in condition for this. My friend and I had been celebrating her new job. My sister was shocked and disgusted and dragged her kids off, but not before telling me what a pathetic loser she thinks I am. She ended up texting me a novel about how disappointed she is, how upsetting it is for her kids to have walked into my apartment reeking of weed, how I'm 27 and should be over that phase of my life, etc. She ripped into me for still living with 5 roommates, not having a car, all this other stuff. It was deeply hurtful, and I just apologized for not being able to help her and the kids. Of course, I had no idea there could be an emergency like this, but you never know. That's why it's an emergency. Yes. I live with 5 people, but they are my friends, and we need each other to afford living here. I don't have a car because I can't drive. Weed is legal here, and it's not a crime to smoke once in a while. My sister said she was so disgusted with me that she brought my parents into it. They have all banded together to let me know what a piece of shit I am for not living up to anyone's expectations. I do feel a little bit defensive because I had no way of knowing this would happen. So I guess my question boils down to, am I the asshole because I was not ready for an emergency at my big age of 27? Did I really let my family down? Okay. I got the post to let me edit it, and someone told me to add that the reason I can't drive is because I medically can't drive, and never can, for my whole entire life, sadly. Story 35. AMI, the AH for snapping at my mom? My mom, 57F, lives with me, 31 meters, due to socioeconomic issues. We both escaped an abusive household. She can't work due to disability and lack of qualifications. She dropped out of school as a teenager, 2A. She tried to go back and finish her studies as an adult, to give me a better life, but my controlling father kept sabotaging and downright forbidding it. I am also disabled, but I'm retired, so I can afford to pay for our living arrangement. It's tight, but manageable. Anyways, about 2 weeks ago I went to the dentist for the first time in my life and found out I have 8 cavities. Not bad for never having gone to the dentist before, right? Anyways, the doctor gave me the standard speech of, brush your teeth, avoid candy, avoid soda, and so on. Ever since then, my mother has not let me eat candy. I know it sounds weird. I'm 31 years old, I'm an adult, I should be able to make my own damn decisions, but my mom has a way to control me when she wants. She's not subtle, either. We'll be at the grocery store and I go, I think I'll buy some chocolate, and she immediately responds with, if you buy candy, I will cry and make a scene. I've been telling her to stop the whole time, that I'm an adult, that I can make my own decisions, that if I want candy, I will eat candy, but she makes a face like she's gonna cry and cuts me off. Day, I couldn't take it anymore. After we left the grocery store, once again without my fucking candy, I told her to cut it out because it was getting on my nerves and that it wasn't fair because I don't tell her how to live her life. She responded with, I'm just concerned for your health pleading face. The dentist said no candy pleading face, and I snapped and said, well, every fucking doctor ever says no cigarettes, but you still smoke a pack a day. Should I stop buying cigarettes out of concern for your health? She looked genuinely taken aback that I'd speak to her like this and on the verge of tears. But I held my ground. Things are tense now. For context, I am a recovering alcoholic and only really got into candy after I quit drinking. It's how I deal with my cravings. She knows this. So, AMI? The AH? Story 36. AMI the AH for not changing my wedding date? AMI the AH for not changing my wedding date because it falls on my friend's wedding anniversary week. We chose the last Saturday in April of 2026, which is April 25th, because my fiance said he didn't want it to be too hot, so no summer wedding. So I thought April would be perfect. I just told my friend when she asked me if we chose a date, and I told her April 25th, and she said you've got to be joking, and asked if I would be changing my date. And after I told her no I wasn't, she said, well, I won't be there, so have fun. We've been friends for probably 10 years. I was in her wedding, and she was in my first wedding a few years ago. Now, I don't remember when her wedding anniversary is, and now she's blocked me on everything. Social media and all. Story 37. AMI. The AH for giving my daughter a car but her sisters no car? When my daughters turned 15, I made each of them a promise that if they didn't go around our backs and secretly smoke, until they turned 21, I would buy them a car. Within reason, obviously. Our oldest, Haley, now 25, broke that promise when she was 16, when we caught her smoking. Cynthia, now 23, broke that promise when she was 18, but later admitted that she had already tried it when she was 17. Both them, fortunately, don't smoke anymore. When it happened, we were disappointed and somewhat mad, but we talked about it, again, about the risks. We realized we couldn't really stop them if they wanted to. They didn't seem that upset about the promise, and probably thought I wasn't serious. But our youngest, Jennifer, now 21, never smoked. She was honest about this, and her sisters also said Jennifer never smoked. After she turned 21, she came to me to talk about the promise. While I was hesitant, I wasn't going to break a promise I made to her, so I bought her a car. This did not go over well with Haley and Cynthia, who argued it was really unfair, and they are now really mad at me. Their mother, my now ex-wife, also said that I shouldn't have bought Jennifer a car. Am I the AH? Story 38. Am I the AH for not inviting a coworker to my birthday party and then talking to her about it? Hello everyone. So I, 30M, recently turned 30 and decided to have a small celebration with two of my friends and my boyfriend at medieval times. Afterward, we came back to my place, and two other friends, who couldn't join us at medieval times, came over to my apt for game night. It was a fun little time now. Anyway, when I went back to work, a coworker, let's call her Sarah, 35F, and I were talking about the weekend, and she asked about how my birthday went. Now, I told her how it was so fun and that I had a lovely time. For background, I don't know this coworker very well yet. We are friendly, but not close. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, Sarah asked if me and my BF wanted to come over to her apt for dinner, which we were supposed to have today. At 6:30 a.m. today, she texted me saying, "Hey, I'm gonna have to call off tonight. I'm just not feeling enough trust between us to have anyone over and in my apartment right now." I went the day without replying, but when I got home, replied saying, "You invited us over 2 weeks ago, and you even asked if we were still on earlier this week. You had plenty of opportunity to cancel or reschedule, but to then say you don't feel enough trust between us to have me over on the day of is absolutely strange, as that should have been something you pondered and considered before even offering me and BF an invitation. It's just rude and tactless." She said, "Interesting, but I accept how you feel. I think it's pretty rude to talk about birthday parties people aren't invited to and then expect them to trust you the same way. So, ATA, for not inviting a coworker to my birthday party and then talking to her about it? I personally find this extremely juvenile. It feels very high school drama. I just wanted my close circle of friends at my 30th. TLDR. Coworker rescinded invitation for dinner after she said she doesn't trust me because it was rude of me to tell her about my birthday party that she wasn't invited to. Story 39. Am I the AH for telling my father I don't want to talk to him anymore and filing for unemployment after he got back at work? Hi, I'm a female, 28. I have been working at family business from 2015, so nearly 10 years now. I struggled a lot dealing with my family at work, as our relations as family and coworkers get mixed up a lot. Although I gave myself a promise, I'll stay until I see that the experience and enjoyment I get is worth the family drama. Recently, my father has returned to work after being away for 2 years because of depression and alcoholism. He didn't want to solve these problems by himself. My mom, who actually started our whole family business, helped him to get through it. Now most of it is over. He's back at work, where everything changed. Everyone has gotten used to him not being there, and my mom, me and my elder sister being the managing directors. I can't tell exactly what is going on with him, as he doesn't tell. But he acts as if he is the main boss and orders us all around. He doesn't understand it when he insults other employees. He constantly acts like he doesn't think we might be right anywhere. Like, for example, if I raise a question or come up with an idea, he says it is not correct. But if the financial director takes my side, in that second, he changes his mind and approves. I often feel like he might be a misogynist, especially when he says to me that he is not acting disrespectful. He is wise and has a lot of experience. I'm too young to understand, but when I will understand, I will get why he acts or speaks this way. I haven't seen disrespectful yet. Quote, "Today was the last drop. We had a cyber attack yesterday, and I was the one who was keeping the company going. I found a cybersecurity company who helped limit the spread, organized a protocol on how all departments will work while we are deprived of our system. I talked to him, and I could not even tell him what happened. He only cared why no one told him what had happened. If someone did, he would solve 80% of our problems by now. I told him that if not a single worker told him, he has to question himself as a leader now. And I said if he knows how to deal with it, why not go and deal? Telling you would do better is not helping the case. He got angry and told me to listen, as he is telling me clever things as a wise man, and not to interrupt him. I couldn't help myself and told him I no longer want to talk to him, and I don't want to work in our family company if I'll be treated this way. Reddit. Please tell me, what do you think? Am I the asshole for wanting to quit and stop talking to my father? He does have a lot of psychological issues, but he does not want to work on them. 40. Am I the AH for giving more personalized gifts because of how much my friend spent for me on my birthday? This happened just yesterday. We are a trio of friends, and I gave more personalized gifts to just one particular friend, and the other friend got extremely jealous that I gave such cute gifts. I made a bunny from crochet and like I painted one jar and put all cute little chits filled with what I loved about that friend. So she just kept pestering me continuously that why I never made such gifts for her, that I never really cared for her because I never gave her such gifts before. And she made the whole situation about her and said that she is not valued, that I love the other friend more than her, that I don't like her and all that crap. So in my frustration, I just blurted out that I did all that because she, the birthday girl, had spent so much for me on my last birthday and that I just felt guilty. While it is not entirely the case, most of it is from genuine appreciation and love. But there is a small part of me that felt extremely guilty. I really, really adore that girl and I felt so guilty so subconsciously. I know I did make all these extra personalized gifts. Also, I had never at that point made such gifts for any other person before. I'm not really into giving over-the-top gifts generally. Anyways, now she's like extremely freaking mad, saying I base my friendship on money, that if she had spent more then I would have given her more gifts. Some stupid crap. Anyways, so AMI, the AH for telling her that? I didn't know she would burst out like that, and we never had such a big fight before. It almost feels like the end of our friendship breakup vibes. Story 41. AMI, the AH for moving out? I, 25F, come from a divorced household. I currently live with my mom, but have gone back and forth between my parents' houses since they divorced when I was 16. My mother comes from a conservative Muslim family, and my dad converted when he married her. He never really believed in the religion, which caused a lot of problems between them. I personally do not believe in Islam, but keep the religion on paper, as I have no reason to renounce my religion and don't want to disappoint my mother. I love my mother. She has done everything for me. She's a strong woman and loves my siblings and I dearly. That being said, she can be explosive and has anger management issues, so does my dad, and through many years of watching them argue I have picked up on this behavior. Many times I have had explosive arguments with them and gone to live with the other parent. What I mean to say is, I'm far from perfect. I started dating this guy, and I really think he's the one. He is my first serious boyfriend, and while we haven't been dating for long, I think about marriage. I date to marry, and I don't date for fun. One of my biggest fears is my husband not wanting to convert to Islam, but then I asked myself, why make him convert into a religion I myself don't believe in? He is okay to convert but doesn't want our future kids to be Muslim, and neither do I. Here comes the problem. I wanted to stay over at his place during the weekends, as we both work during the week. I asked my mother for permission and she said hell no. Tried to have a discussion with her a few times, and she told me it's her house and her rules, which I respect. She told me if I don't want to follow these rules, I can make my choice and leave. I understand, and don't plan to challenge her conservative values any further. To me, staying over once a week is a small matter, and I fear how she will react to bigger things in the future, e.g. now. Next time, if we want to move in, TGT, non-religious kids, not getting married in a mosque, things like that. So I made the decision to move back into my dad's house, as he is supportive of this relationship. My mom is furious and feels betrayed, feels that I'm choosing my boyfriend over her when I haven't been with him for long. I understand she's hurt, and it hurts me to put my foot down like this. I truly feel it's going to come to this eventually, and I am just delaying the problem if I continue living with her. Eventually, I'm going to want the autonomy to make my own decisions regarding my relationship and move out, so why delay it? Furthermore, she asked me to make a choice, and I did. Now she has blocked me and called my sister to tell her what happened. My sister is furious that she is put in the middle and also thinks I'm being ridiculous. She says she fears the day I will pick my boyfriend over her. How do I explain to them I am not picking my BF over my mom, I'm picking me? So, AMI the AH? Story 42. AMI the AH for not letting my boyfriend choose a dog? So me, 22F, and my boyfriend, 22M, are moving into our new house in a week. We're really excited, but the same heated argument keeps happening. Which kind of dog we are going to be getting? I like small, relaxed dogs like Chihuahuas. My boyfriend, on the other hand, has always wanted a really big dog. Think Mastiff, Cane Corso, German Shepherd, Dobermans. We have always known this about each other. Now, for a bit of context, I work full-time in sales and earn a lot of money. He works in the army, earns similar, but has a lot of bills and debts. Because of this, I am going to be paying for the majority of the property we are moving into. It was my idea to move out. I am well aware of his financial situation, and it does not bother me. I am happy to pay for mostly everything until he is in a better place, but I'm talking about 80% or more. Now also bear in mind the house is a small rental, so we have a landlord that we will need to go through for these decisions. It is a pets considered property, but my boyfriend doesn't understand that chances of the landlord saying yes to a massive dog is very slim. My concerns is that firstly, the larger the dog, the more damage it is likely to do to the carpet with pees, etc. before it is trained. Also, there's no dog flap, so someone will always have to be regularly at home to let it out. I do not like big dogs that shed a lot either. Like huskies, they are great. But it's my first house, and I would like to keep it relatively clean and free from hair. My biggest concern is that since my boyfriend is in the army, he has to go away a lot, ranging from 1 to 6 months at a time. When he goes away, any pet that we have is going to be solely in my care. This is going to limit my freedom massively. Like I said, I work full-time, and if he goes away for 6 months, I am going to have to structure my whole life around the dog with little to no help from anyone else. I will have to rush straight back home from work to let it out, take it on a long walk after work every day, limit where I can go and what I can do. I'm also not a very strong person. I struggle to control a smaller mixed breed that my mom has on walks, so I'm worried about not being able to control a bigger one. My boyfriend gets very angry when I say this all to him, and it turns into a big argument. He argues that the dog will be properly trained by time he needs to go away, that he is allowed to get whatever dog he wants, and that I am awful by trying to stop him from doing that. I am happy to compromise and get a medium small dog, but he is not happy about this and tells me that I've always known that he wanted a big dog, and it's unfair that I'm changing my mind now. I don't know what to do. Am I being unfair? I'm trying to be logical about the situation, and I think it is unfair on me, because my needs need to be taken into account as I am going to be looking after it for months when he is away. Edit. Thank you for all of your feedback. There are some good points. As I have mentioned in my replies, my experience with Chihuahuas has obviously been far different from others. My own Chihuahua is very laid back, and my aunt owns 2 Chihuahuas. They are typically more the energetic, angrier types you are on about, but I've looked after them on multiple occasions and have not seen it as a challenge. They have still been pretty low maintenance and get on with their own thing. My biggest worry with a big dog is not being able to control it. I do think a lot of you are right. It probably is not the best time for a dog, and we need to have a compromise either way. I have family members who have larger dogs, so we could look after them for a few days and see how realistically their needs fit in with our schedules before committing to anything. Because of course, a dog is for life. I want to get a dog that I am happy to care for when my partner is abroad with work for months at a time. Story 43. AMI. The AH for protecting my sister? My dad's side of the family has always been obsessed with alcohol and condones alcoholism, like as if it's some coming-of-age bar mitzvah kind of thing. A while back, my grandma was giving my sister some alleged juice, but I knew SMTH wasn't right. The way she and my dad were smiling gave it off. I stood up and screamed at her not to drink it. I started sobbing. I think I could have overreacted here, but I was overstunned that day anyway. My grandma and dad looked distraught. Game over. I took my sis inside and locked us with our phones. To this day, my dad says it's a harmless joke, but clearly not. My grandma and grandpa say I overreacted by stopping them and that it's not that serious. AITA? Edit T. My sister is a complete minor at the age of 10, and IMO it was super effed up of my dad and grandma to do so. I might have overreacted, but I only started crying after grandma started screaming at me for ruining her prank. Story 44. AMI. The AH for not letting my friend's husband come to my Galentine's party? Backstory. One of my 29F best friends, 32F, got married last spring. It's fun. Since she got married, we do mostly group hangouts with her husband, 38M, my partner, and some other friends, which is totally fine and fun. Now, I have a Galentine's party every year for my girlfriends, usually about 4 to 5 of us, and we all bring an appetizer and have wine, play some games, etc. I texted the group to let them know, and everyone responded. My friend messaged me privately to say that if her husband can't come, she can't come, and asked if he could come with her. I normally would welcome him, but no one else's husband or boyfriends will be there, and it just isn't that kind of party, lol. I told her that no one else's partners would be there, and she said that since being married, they are a package deal and only attend things together. I told her I respected whatever arrangements they had in their marriage, and if she wasn't able to attend, I understood. However, a few days later, a mutual friend told me that they talked, and she said she was hurt by the fact I wouldn't invite him and felt I was being rude. I do plan to talk to her about it, but just need some feedback from Reddit. Edit. A few words. Edit number 2. Because a lot of people asked, this party is held on the 13th, not on Valentine's Day. Edit number 3 to add. Thanks everyone who has taken the time to respond. I had a lot of anxiety about this. I knew I had done the right thing in my head, but then I second-guessed myself. Now I feel good in the boundaries I set. Edit number 4. Galentine's Day. A day to celebrate female friendship. Similar to Valentine's Day, but for friends instead of romantic partners. It's often celebrated on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. What? It's for all female friendships, and not just singles. Story 45. AMI. The AH for expecting my stay-at-home husband to do the stay-at-home duties? This is my first time posting, so sorry for any mistakes. My husband Jack, 33M, and I, 28F, have a toddler together and have another one on the way. He's a stay-at-home, and I work full-time. I'm out of the house the majority of the day while he's home with the toddler. Jack doesn't do anything. He never sets an alarm to get up with the toddler. I do. He sits in the living room until our toddler's nap, which varies every day. Then goes to the basement to play his video games. Our toddler will sleep anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. Then, once our toddler wakes up, he gets her, makes dinner, and maybe gets one chore done around the house. Almost every day he does this. There are some days when I'm pleasantly surprised. I've talked to Jack multiple times about keeping the house cleaned, but he claims it's not fair that I don't have to do anything, which isn't true. If the house is kept up on, I do dishes, laundry, and meal prep on my days off. Sometimes I'll bake too. I'll also be on toddler duty. However, once he lets the house go, I don't do anything other than clean the areas my toddler is in, so she's not affected by it because she deserves a clean house. I have almost gotten the house completely cleaned 3 times now, and he lets the house go. I've tried splitting chores, but again, it's hard when I work full-time and I'm out of the house the majority of the day. My job has me on my feet all day, and some days are harder than others. I tell Jack all the time, and have proven it sometimes, that if the roles were reversed, I'd have the house cleaned for him. Jack claims that's not true. He claims it's my fault that the house is trashed, because I should do more. Yet I work full-time because he didn't want to work, which I supported and made more sense financially. I have also been really tired and just want to sleep due to my pregnancy, but Jack gets mad if I don't wake up in the morning, even though I let him sleep in most mornings. I know how red it can be, which is why I didn't want to post, but I'm at my wit's end. We literally had another fight about the house being trashed, and instead of helping me clean like I asked, he's now working in the garage. Jack will literally find other things to do other than clean the house. For example, if there's a task that needs to be done, he'll take all day to do it, even if it's an hour-long job. So AMI, the AH for expecting my husband to clean the house? Should I be doing more? Story 46. AMI, the AH for not agreeing to work for free on my partner's rental property business? My partner and I have been together for 3 years. During this time, I have helped him on remodeling some of his rental properties and other property management tasks. He helped me repair my home after a major flood incident. I would say up until this point, our work-for-work exchange has been fairly equal to slightly tipping the scale in his favor. He recently decided to completely gut and remodel one of the rental homes. This project is expected to take 6 months or more. We anticipate remodeling several of the properties over the next few years. This is going to be a significant time and labor investment. We have talked about marriage and what a prenup might look like. He has been clear in that he wants to keep his rental properties as separate property if we were to get married. He has even gone as far to say that he would want the rental properties even separate from me in his estate planning/will, and that everything would go to his siblings. This has been alarming to me and quite hurtful. I understand he doesn't want to lose assets in the event we divorced, but I truly don't understand the estate side of things. This detail makes a difference because we have a 13-year age gap, and he would likely pass before me. I have told him that if he wants to keep the rental business separate, that's fine, but I will no longer be volunteering my time to his business. Basically that I won't be his free labor slave girl to enrich him and his family. If he wants me to come work on remodeling the properties, he will need to pay me as if I am an employee. I told him my pay rate would be $20 an hour. I have also suggested he call on his family to come help him. I am firm on this boundary right now. He is becoming resentful of my position on this. He believes that me helping him benefits both of us. I have asked him how it benefits both of us, and he really can't quantify how it benefits me in any way. We have totally separate finances. I am on board to be a partner and teammate, but what he expects doesn't really look like a partnership to me. So AMI, the AH for not agreeing to work on his rental property business for free? Story 47. AMI, the AH for making a joke about my family dying? Today I came in late to work, a place I've worked at for about 2 years now, give or take, and I generally like to joke around with my coworkers, YK as you do, especially my general manager who I chat with a lot. After getting my shit together and feeling out the vibes for today, I walked in and told the previous shift employee, "Hey, sorry you have to work a double. My whole family died and I have to leave." This is not an out-of-the-ordinary joke. Instead of getting the reaction I thought I would, both looked at me horrified and said with 100% seriousness, "Don't say that," and started going on about karma and being jinxed, like genuinely acting as though I would be killing my entire family right now if I made such a joke. I started getting pissed off, so I just walked away so they could go back to what they were talking about before, and my manager followed me. Just to clarify, my manager and I are buddies. I care about her a lot, and I know she had a tough past year. So she walked up to me and started speaking in what I thought was a patronizing tone about how she's lost a lot of family last year and how she knows one girl whose whole family died in a house fire, including said girl's baby. In between what she was saying, she was doing these little wheezy laughs and tried to goof around with me a bit, telling me that she loved me and was like, "My boy, I taught you better than that." But I just kind of shut down. I didn't say anything. I just walked back to where my coworker was, and she immediately called me an ass. Later clarified she was joking, but in the moment it felt serious. So I walked out of the store and just stood outside to cool off for a bit. I will fully accept, if I'm being a child here, it's early in the morning, and maybe I did say something thoughtless. So I'm here to ask the masses the age-old question. Am I the asshole? Neither are mad at me, and I believe this isn't going to affect anything major. We just moved on. But I feel like their reactions were unwarranted, and if I made them uncomfortable, there are different ways I could have been approached about it. And if I am in fact in the wrong here, I want to know, so I can avoid making such jokes with others in the future. Story 48. Am I the AH for being tired of my dad's girlfriend? I currently live part-time with my dad and his girlfriend. I have had a long series of problems with my dad's girlfriend over things like where I put my stuff in my dad's house. Other things that have been arguments have been me correcting her about my pronouns, and me expressing that I don't want my things moved. It all boiled over into a huge argument today and yesterday. Yesterday she got mad that I had stuff in a common area that I had yet to find a place for, and my bag on the ground but completely out of the way. I got mad at her, telling her I never asked her to clean up after me and that personally I didn't appreciate it. She lost her shit and threatened to clean up the common area and throw everything of mine that was in that room away. I came home today to find that stuff not where it was when I left for school this morning. I started to freak out, thinking that she did throw it away. I realized she had simply moved it all into a bag that she put on the couch. When I saw her a few minutes later, I told her, "Thanks for moving my shit when I calmly told you yesterday I didn't want my shit messed with." Might have been an asshole for that, but I was stressed out and pissed off at her for going against what I calmly told her. I am considering asking to get the custody schedule changed so I don't have to go to my dad's house and be near her. Something that probably is needed. A summary of previous arguments. She didn't like the way I organized my bedroom. I didn't like that she was suddenly telling me we had guests coming over mere hours before the guests came over. I felt hurt that she kept misgendering me. She was triggered by being corrected on my pronouns. I don't like her reorganizing my room while I'm at school. She lives there too, and I have to share the room with 3 other people. I did not receive your phone call, and my phone doesn't show it. Likely because I was not about to get disqualified from a tournament at my own school, so had my phone on airplane mode. Quote, "My phone is apparently broken, and the reason everyone is stressed and miserable. I told her I didn't care if she stayed to watch awards since she had come to watch me in finals, and I didn't make finals. I'm apparently refusing to talk to her. I brought over cube organizers from my mom's to help with organizing my and my sister's stuff. I'm bringing things into her house without talking to her. I asked my dad first, sorry I expected him to talk to her. I don't appreciate her comparing me to her son and kids she apparently once taught because I'm not those kids, and I want her to take accountability for comparing me. She doesn't have to take accountability. My mom told me to keep myself and my sister upstairs away from the argument. That doesn't matter because mom isn't here. There were others, those were just all the ones I can remember right now. So am I being an asshole towards my dad's girlfriend for being tired of her bullshit and telling my mom I don't want to go to my dad's house anymore?" Story 49. Am I the AH for not letting my mom crash at my apartment when my parents are having a fight? Hi Reddit. I'm scared I may lose my relationship with both parents over being an asshole here, so I'd love some outside opinions. I, 30F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bedroom being an office. Sometimes family or friends crash on my couch since I live near downtown and the airport. I don't mind visitors occasionally. My parents, 66 and 65, have been married for 35 years, but have been flirting with divorce since I was 14. They separate for a few days but always get back together. A few years ago, I set a boundary to not get involved in their marital issues or hear about them. They've mostly respected this. One time, my mom stayed overnight before getting an Airbnb for a week, which was awkward, but okay. This week, My mom called me at 8 a.m. on a Sunday saying she needed to stay for several days because she needed to be away from my dad. I was startled by the call. She woke me up and wasn't thrilled by the idea of having her stay for several days. I had just hosted my brother for 2 nights, and I wasn't sure about hosting my mom for an extended stay. I said, "Well, you can come down for a night and we'll see how it goes." She responded, "You don't want to be around me, I get it. I'll get an Airbnb," and hung up. I tried calling back twice and texted her to let her know she could come down, but I didn't get a response. 2 days later, I casually asked her for her opinion on which glasses I should buy, trying to reset our conversation. She called, surprised that I wanted her opinion on anything. I realized she was still upset, so I suggested we talk. She said she was in crisis on Sunday and that I abandoned her. She said I should have taken her in because she would do the same for me. I explained that she has a house and my apartment is small. Additionally, I've set the boundary of not getting involved in her marriage, and hosting her while she's escaping my dad felt like I was getting pulled into it. I tried to mention that as the child I shouldn't have the burden of protecting my parent, that it should be the other way around. She disagreed with all of this and hung up on me again. The next day, I sent her a 4-paragraph text, reiterating that I loved her and would never abandon her, but I would stand firm on my boundary. I said that I couldn't be her emotional crash pad. It's been 24 hours. This is fine. I told her to take some time. My brother, who lives with my parents, told me they're going over the message together and misinterpreting each line in the worst possible way. He's worried they might cut me off entirely. I understand I'm hearing this through the grapevine though. I'm oddly okay with the possibility because this relationship has been draining. I'm close with my sister who they are no contact with. She's been a great support, but obviously, her perspective is biased. I know family bonds mean caring for and supporting each other, but I'm not sure where the line is between caring for my mom and making her marriage my problem. Story 50. AMI, the AH for talking while I'm asleep? I'm a 15F in high school, and I have a strange sleep-related issue that's causing problems in my life. When I'm asleep, I sometimes respond to people, make eye contact, and even walk around, but I have no memory of these actions when I wake up. Over the years, this has led to situations where I unknowingly promise to do things in my sleep, only to wake up completely unaware, and then get in trouble for not following through. The most recent incident has me questioning if I'm the problem. A few days ago, I had a swim meet in the evening. My parents woke me up around 6 p.m., or so they told me, and asked if I had a meet that day. Apparently, I sleep-talked and told them no, then went right back to sleep. I woke up 50 minutes later thinking there wasn't practice or a meet, since I hadn't been woken up for anything. I can't drive, so my parents control when I leave for events. I started messaging friends on my phone, only to get a message from my coach asking where I was and telling me the meet had already started. I panicked, got up, and asked for a ride. My mom was busy taking my brother to basketball, and my dad was in the middle of work. He works from home. But luckily, my dad managed to take me. I arrived just in time, and none of my events had started yet, so everything worked out in the end. However, when I got home, my parents were furious. They confiscated all my electronics and yelled at me for not being present, and blamed the situation on me, listening to too much music. For context, my parents have very high standards for me. Getting a B+ in a college-level class is enough to make them angry. I've tried explaining my sleep condition to them many times, but they dismiss it, telling me I just need to stop napping during the day. That would be fine, except I have insomnia and only seem to sleep well after long social interactions, like school. So, AMI, the AH for what happened, and if so, what can I do about this? Story 51. AMI, the AH for skipping my friend's birthday dinner because I feel uncomfortable being around our old high school friends. I, 18F, have been friends with my friend, 18F, for 3 to 4 years. Her birthday is coming up in February, and she invited me to a dinner with some girls from our high school. I haven't seen these girls in over a year, and during that time I've gained weight. This has made me very insecure, especially around people I haven't seen in a long time. These girls have always been very appearance-focused, and I feel like being around them will make me uncomfortable. Because they are very appearance-based, and all much skinnier than me, I've decided not to attend the dinner because I don't think I can handle the anxiety it's causing me. I also still haven't told my friend that I probably won't be attending. However, I still want to see her and give her a nice gift, so she knows how much she means to me. I feel like I might be letting her down by not attending the dinner. Am I the asshole for skipping her birthday celebration because I'm uncomfortable being around the other guests? Story 52. AMI, the AH for going to a family Christmas during COVID lockdown. This is a throwback to 2020, but it's something I think about a lot as it marked a notable turning point in my relationship with my friends/roommates. I, 23 at the time, was in college and rented a house with 4 other roommates, not including myself. During lockdown, my roommates and I followed the recommended procedures pretty strictly. One of my roommates was immunocompromised, so for their safety, we stayed home. At first, it was fine. We were all pretty big stoners and had a lot of fun, but as with a lot of people during that time, after a few months, we were all a little sick of each other. Everything was fine until we got to Christmas. For a little context, my parents divorced 4 years before lockdown, and my dad, whom I've always been close to, moved across the country. I've maintained a good relationship with my dad, but given the physical distance between us, I'm lucky if I get to see him in person once every other year. 3 years prior to COVID, my grandpa passed away. His funeral was the last time I had seen my dad and most of my family. Not to get too personal, but following his death, my family imploded, and a lot of fights started to break out between my uncles and my dad. During lockdown, everyone started to reevaluate their priorities, and my grandma managed to get everyone to come home for Christmas. I had decided to go back as well. My grandma stressed to everyone that it was very important to her that we all make it. I didn't think it would be a big deal. One of my other roommates had already gone home for her family Christmas, and her brother even had COVID when she was there. But nobody was upset that she went. On top of that, my grandma forced everyone to get tested for COVID in advance to make sure everyone was safe. So I went to Christmas, and it was good to see everyone again, and maybe most importantly, I got to spend time with my dad, who I hadn't seen in 3 years, and my brother, who was in the army and had been stationed overseas for a year and a half. Everything seemed fine until I messaged the group chat with my roommates. There was a bad snowstorm that hit while I was visiting my family, and I let my roommates know I'd be getting back a day later than I'd originally planned, and that's when all hell broke loose. One of my roommates sent a very pointed messages expressing their anger and frustration that I had gone at all. They cited that my family is a bit rough around the edges. I'm from a small town and have a redneck family with some closed-minded beliefs. I messaged back, saying that everyone got tested, and besides our other roommate, who is from the same town as me and has a similar family, had already gone and come back, and her brother was sick while she was there, and it was all fine. My roommate snapped back saying that doesn't matter, and got very heated. Basically, it boiled down to the fact that she wanted to go to her family Christmas, but her mom, who was also immunocompromised, didn't want to risk it. I felt bad that she couldn't go, but they knew about this in advance and hadn't mentioned anything to me. Suddenly, my other roommates start hopping in and turns into a big dog pile against me. Meanwhile, the one who'd already gone to her Christmas was completely silent. It got so bad that my phone kept pinging and my family was asking me what was happening. I was having a full-blown panic attack in front of my family, which was not fun given how most of them view therapy and mental health. I put my phone down and just decided to ignore it because it was kind of stupid. Why didn't they just voice their concerns 2 weeks ago when I told them I was going? Now, remember how I said my grandma had really stressed that she wanted everyone to be there? The reason was that she wanted to give all of her kids and grandkids a small urn with my grandpa's ashes. His death was very hard on her, and she took a full year before she even picked up his ashes. Sweet and very emotional for the whole family. By the time I finally made it back to my house, my roommates wouldn't talk to me. I tried to explain that I wanted to see my dad and brother, and that my grandma had given me my grandpa's ashes. But it didn't matter. I understand it was maybe a bit selfish, but again, someone else had already gone home and nobody was mad at her. So I didn't get why it was such a big deal. To make things worse, they just kept talking trash on my family. After that, everything changed in the house. I became a complete recluse because 2 of my roommates started blaming me for every issue that popped up. One of them forgot to do their dishes, and now it's all piled up? That's my fault. Someone left trash on the table? That's my fault, even though I haven't left my room in 4 months. They even started this really mean joke. This account, one of my roommates was obsessed with zombies and posed a hypothetical about what roles each of us would have in a zombie apocalypse. They all decided roles for each other but would joke that I would just be left to die, or that I'd just be baiting. I tried to make a few joke suggestions, but they didn't stick. I told them it kind of hurt to have my friends tell me I have no use, so they'd just kill me, and they just doubled down even harder. By the time we all moved out, only one of my roommates would still talk to me, and not one of them ever apologized for overreacting. Oh, and my roommate, who was worried about not being able to go to her Christmas, she still went. Nobody got sick. It was all okay, but still, I was the only stupid one, and everyone else was fine. I think about this a lot, and it really bugs me. They were some of my closest friends, and now only one of them talks to me. Sometimes I wonder if I handled it poorly, or if I should have gone at all. Maybe I was being selfish, but I got my grandpa's ashes, and got a rare chance to see my dad. Story 53. Am I the AH for where I hid the keys? I, 26F, and my boyfriend, 25M, often stay at my place. But when we stay at his, I either leave with him in the morning or stay longer and lock up, returning his only set of keys later. As Minch, this arrangement has worked fine until now. Today we had separate plans. He finished work at 12:30 p.m., while I had an event with friends at 3 p.m. We agreed I'd leave the keys hidden for him to grab later. I told him in advance where I'd hide them, under the entrance stairs, well hidden but accessible, and sent a photo of the spot. Later, I missed calls from him. When I called back, he was furious, saying the keys were gone and blaming me for hiding them there. He called me names, like R*T at Ard, and accused me of not listening to his instructions. I rushed back, anxious, only to find the keys exactly where I'd left them. I handed them over, walked away, and rejoined my friends. He insists I'm the asshole for not following his instructions, burying the keys somewhere, and denies insulting me. He did. I thought I was being considerate by ensuring the keys were safe and nearby, and letting him know the location in advance. AMI? The AH? Story 54. AMI, the AH, for not wanting to pay £1,500 so that my dad can work out of my bedroom closet? Recently, I, 23M, made the decision to drop out of university. Das find. This was due in part to the fact that I didn't find it intellectually stimulating, but also because my nan was having some housing trouble. That situation deteriorated, and, long story short, I find myself moving in with my dad, 50M. Me and my dad have had a rocky relationship, mainly because we lived together before, and he has a very particular vision for his home. If anyone disrupts that vision, then he kind of explodes. Now, I don't have much of a choice of where I live, and I'm very appreciative that he's offering me a room. I was also quite excited to stop moving about, as I've done so about 4 times in the last few months, and having an opportunity to start a career would excite me. Not to mention we've been getting along a lot better recently. But my excitement kinda died when I was told what his vision for our situation was. My dad has been very honest that he has a single room and, considering that my brother might be moving in, he wants to split a fairly big room into 2 smaller bedrooms. Okay, that makes sense, and I was willing to pay for it, assuming my brother reimbursed me for half when he arrives. Thing is, that might not be happening for a year, or in my opinion at all, but my dad still wants the work done ASAP. This is because he wants to use the extra room, which can only be accessed through my room, to work in. Effectively, he expects me to pay £1,500 so that he can work out of a closet in my bedroom. My dad only requires a laptop to work and has already admitted that he could work in the kitchen, though he did mention it would be a hassle. Now it's his house, and I understand that he has the final say, but I feel like I have a right to be a little miffed at his decision process here. I mean, I'm already paying to have his attic redone, which I'm happy to do because it's mainly my stuff going up there, but I'm also expected to pay for all of this, so that I have the right to pay him rent for a room I'm going to have zero privacy in. I'm thinking about just telling him that me moving in on a long-term basis is the wrong idea, and that I'll just try to move out ASAP, because I just don't feel welcome in his home anymore. It just feels like he's purposefully made the situation as unappealing to me as possible. AMI, the AH, or am I right in thinking this is a little crazy? Story 55. AMI, the AH for telling my mom I don't want to get a tattoo with my sister? Backstory before we start. A couple months ago, my mom and my oldest sister got into a huge fight that led them to not speaking for 4 months. I was drunk. During this fight, I was put in the middle and did a lot of communicating between the two of them. It was like we were little kids playing telephone. Well, after a couple weeks of telephone, my sister blew up on me and ended up cutting me out of her life, claiming I was brainwashed by my mom and hoped I would get better. That went down in October of 2024, and I'm still not over it, because me and my sister were extremely close. And to have her disown me like that and call me names really hurt our relationship. My mom and my sister ended up making up right before Thanksgiving and have rekindled their relationship, but I haven't received one lick of an apology for 1, being put in the middle, and 2, for having to endure the things I did when they were fighting, which were pretty traumatizing, because my family loves to make big and empty threats. However, weeks before she made up with my mom, she did call me to talk about the whole situation and said how much it hurt her to hear me call her names. When we fought, I called her a dumb bitch and stupid CVNT because I was mad and she wouldn't listen to me and had called me way worse. And it also hurt her not having me in her life, even though she's the one who cut me out of it. But being the people pleaser I am, I apologized to her without realizing that I never got one back. After that, she still didn't talk to me but thought we were okay. Since they made up, my sister has been around and things have been all right. The situation still makes me upset though. Now, on to the real story. I, F17, and my mom, F47, we're discussing tattoos because I want to get my first one for my birthday next month. She said she wanted a matching tattoo with her, my sisters, and I. Before the big fight, we all, my sister, mom, and I, discussed getting a matching one for my first one, and I was completely on board then, but now, not so much. I want to get something more meaningful to me. I told my mom I would love to get a matching tattoo with her, but not my sister, because I'm still not over my sister, F28, disowning me, and how she acted with the whole situation. My mom says I need to get over it, because her and my sister made up. She said my sister hasn't brought up the fight and apologized because she doesn't want to bring up something old and make everything tense again. As of right now, me and my sister's relationship has not gotten back to how it was before this whole fight. I'm not completely opposed to getting a tattoo with them, but maybe when this all gets cleared up and loose ends get tied. But tell me, Reddit, AMI the AH? Story 56. AMI the AH for not helping out my father? I'll try to keep this post short. I, M28, rarely help my father out with anything. He thinks very little of me. In fact, I've overheard him say I'm a layabout, or a good-for-nothing, an idiot, or other such things several times. I live with my parents and pursue higher education, something they encouraged me to do all through my youth, since they both settled into manual labor and wanted something better for me. That all changed when I didn't immediately have my life figured out and floundered in my early university years. I racked up some debt, moved back home, started a 9-to-5, and finally my desired degree in my local uni. I've supported my expenses through work, and fortunately had a great career in academics from then on. I have my bachelor's, my thesis has been published in print, and I'm pursuing my master's right now. I even found a girlfriend, the sweetest girl ever, even though I've been struggling with low self-esteem all my life. Still, for my parents, I can't seem to do good ever since I turned 18. They expected me to be a miracle kid, to bring in the money. Instead, I cost them money. My father looks down on me, and my mother stopped defending me a long time ago. Whenever I don't do what he wants without him asking, he starts quietly sulking until I slip up and make a mistake. Then he has a full outburst, berates me, shouts at me, calling me every horrible name in the book, so on and so forth. Obviously, this had a result in me as well. Not only can I not connect with my parents, I have trust issues, low self-esteem, and was prone to S-arm for a while. I especially have a bad relationship with my dad. Anytime I want to trust him just a little bit, let him come an inch closer, I realize there's just nothing there. He'll never change and will always treat me like garbage. Am I the asshole, not wanting to help a man like him? Not being at his beck and call? Not running top speed at every opportunity to mow the lawn, take out the trash, help him at his job, help him build his weekend house, or renovate our own home? Story 57. AMI, the AH for telling husband he shouldn't play on his phone? Me, 36F, and husband, 38M, are trying to make a real effort to reduce screen time for our son, 6. We admittedly fell into very bad habits for a variety of reasons: postpartum depression, stressful jobs, etc. Not an excuse, but we're trying to rectify it now. We tend to allow son to play on the tablet for a bit after school, but I'm trying to be more strict about how long he's allowed on it for. I will admit to being on my phone when he's on the tablet. Earlier, he was allowed on it for a little while, and then I told him he had to turn it off. But I then went to get changed before cooking dinner. Husband was upstairs having a lie down after work and playing on his phone. I got changed, and then son came in and climbed into the bed. He started saying that husband had to turn his phone off because otherwise he got more screen time and that wasn't fair. He was admittedly rude, and we told him that. I told him daddy was in the middle of something and would turn his phone off when he'd finished. Son began to get annoyed because we'd scolded him, saying he needed to turn the phone off because he'd had so much screen time. Husband then got annoyed and went downstairs. I stayed with son for a bit, then went downstairs and quietly, so son wouldn't hear, said that I thought even though he was rude, he kinda had a point, and we should be cutting our screen time down if we expect him to be doing it. Husband's response was along the lines of, "No, son can 5 times scoff. He's 6, he can't tell me what to do. We don't follow the same rules as him." No, but I do think kids learn by example, and what's it teaching him if daddy is doing the exact thing we've told him is bad for him and he shouldn't do? I have gotten annoyed before about husband bringing his phone to the table when it's dinner time because he's in the middle of a game, when I've said countless times to son we don't have screens at the meal table. Husband also tells him this, then turns around and has his screen at the meal table. If husband wants to use his phone when son isn't around / has gone to bed / is otherwise occupied, then he can go ahead. He's a grown man. But I think there should be limits. Husband is angry. I was taking son's side and seems to think I was treating him like a child. I just think I made a reasonable point about how we should set a good example. AMI? The AH? Story 58. AMI. the AH for telling my childhood best friend's secret? In April 2024, my best friend, sister, and two other friends went to Paris for a weekend trip. I couldn't join them, but everything seemed fine from what I saw on social media. However, when my sister returned, she was bruised with a busted lip and cuts all over her face. My heart sank as she began to explain what happened. My sister told me about the night at the club. She and my best friend were having a good time, but things took a turn when my best friend met a guy. She decided to go back to his apartment, leaving my sister behind, intoxicated and vulnerable. My sister later found videos of herself crying and asking strangers for help, but no one intervened. Thankfully, the man at the apartment helped her, but the situation disturbed me deeply. I felt betrayed by my best friend for abandoning my sister in such a vulnerable state. It was a basic rule of friendship to never leave someone behind, especially in that kind of environment. After some time, I found out more details. My sister had tried to reach her friend for help, spamming her with calls and leaving desperate voice messages, but when my best friend was confronted, she laughed it off. She dismissed my sister's disappearance as overdramatic and said she was probably with a guy. My sister's friends, realizing the gravity of the situation, went to the French police to report her missing. My best friend, however, was only focused on herself. She complained about being hungry and didn't show any concern for my sister's well-being. Even when they arrived at the police station, she seemed uninterested, focusing on her own needs rather than the crisis at hand. Because I was so angry and hurt, I vented to one of my sister's friends about what I'd observed in my best friend over the years, including her history of selfish behavior. She had cheated in her past relationships, lied to her boyfriend, and disrespected others. For instance, during a summer trip, she met a new guy and cheated again, calling him my man, while lying to her boyfriend. She had also been involved in a cheating scandal with a guy who was engaged, and when I confronted her about it, she reacted angrily and insulted everyone involved. This pattern of selfishness left me heartbroken, but things took an even worse turn when my sister's friend posted a screenshot of her with a new boyfriend and called her a hoe. This led to my best friend blocking her everywhere, and for some reason, my sister's friend blamed me for it and removed me from all social media platforms. Later, my sister's friends started spreading rumors and lying, claiming I was responsible for the vulgar post. She falsely accused me of bad-mouthing others, including making cruel comments about someone's financial situation. As a result, many friends wanted to cut me off, calling me disingenuous. It became clear that the friendship had never been as mutual as I thought. Despite the fallout, I know my truth, and if that makes me the villain, so be it. So am I the AH? Story 59. Am I the AH for refusing to hyphenate my name to add my stepdad's name? My mom and stepdad asked me, 16F, and my sister, 13F, is we would hyphenate our last name to add our stepdad's. And bed. My answer was immediately no. I didn't need to think about it or sit on it for a while. I don't want to have my stepdad's name even if I'm keeping my dad's. This is my name too, and I won't ever change it. They know I feel like that. I don't care if I get married someday, my name is staying. My sister said no after me. Marriage in two. She said she didn't want to and said she didn't think she needed it for anything. My stepdad looked upset, so mom decided to try and sway us. She said it wouldn't be a big change, it wasn't erasing our dad, and it could be a good way to represent both of them. She added a bit about sharing a last name with her again in a way. I said we did fine for all these years and I didn't need us to share a name again. I said my answer wasn't changing. My sister faked being upset so it wouldn't be pushed on her. She admitted it to me when our mom and stepdad went out for the night, which meant she got to leave. But my mom and stepdad wanted me to stay and talk it out more. They made all these points about it, and my stepdad said it would mean the world to him. He said he has no kids of his own, but he considers me and my sister his kids, and he'd like to think he's our second dad and is equally as important as our biological parents to us. My mom said they waited 6 years to ask this, thinking we'd be more on board. She didn't like that I was so quick to say no, and she told me she felt like I wasn't thinking of my stepdad's feelings. My mom and stepdad have been married for 6 years. We lost our dad only a few months before that. Our parents were divorced though, and she dated him for 2 years before. We didn't meet him until after dad had died. After mom brought up waiting 6 years thing, she said she wishes she had never listened to my dad and had introduced us sooner so we'd be more on board with the idea now. Apparently my dad told her we had one mom and one dad, and nothing would change that, and that my stepdad, who was her boyfriend at the time, wouldn't ever be our second dad. She was rambling about it more than anything, but she said I should see how wrong and controlling that was from dad, and it should open me to the idea of my stepdad being my second dad and being worthy of me adding his name to mine. My answer didn't change, and my mom lectured me on the feelings of others and influencing my innocent little sister. Am I the AH? Story 60. AMI the AH, shaving for my husband. AMI the AH for being upset with my husband for asking me to shave. We live in the north, it is winter, and I have not shaved my legs in probably about a month due to seasonal depression / not needing to wear shorts in this weather. My husband came to bed and saw my lying with one leg out of the covers and commented on my leg hair. He then asked if we were supposed to have sex after seeing my leg like that. I told him I could go shave, but it would take a while, and I'm already in bed, so I really didn't want to. He just told me again how unattractive and manly it is to have hair on my legs. I don't prefer body hair, but I've never asked him to shave it because I love him, the person, and I'm attracted to him, the person, regardless of how body hair. He just looked pissed like he didn't think it was the same thing. What the hell? I told him to forget it, and that we're not having sex again until he understands what upset me and apologizes for being so rude. Am I in the wrong here? Story 61. AMI. The AH for wanting to call off my wedding because my fiance's stepmother keeps insisting we're siblings? So, I, 23F, am engaged to my fiance Daniel, 24M. Harry. He's the son of a very wealthy businessman, and to be honest, I come from a much more humble background. We met a few years ago at a mutual friend's party and hit it off immediately. We have a ton in common, same sense of humor, similar values, we're both super family oriented, and we have the same weird taste in music. We even share similar quirks and habits that make us seem like we've known each other forever. Basically, we just click. Here's where the problem starts. Daniel's father remarried a few years ago to a woman named Valerie. She's in her mid-40s, and well, let's just say she's not the nicest person. She's always been kind of cold to me, but I didn't think much of it. A little passive-aggressive here and there, but nothing crazy. However, over the last few months, things have started getting out of hand. Valerie started making these strange comments, usually when we're alone or in private settings. She has started implying that Daniel and I are too close for fiancés. The first time she said it, I laughed it off, thinking it was some weird joke, but then it kept happening. She started pushing the idea that Daniel and I are not just fiancé and fiancée, but rather brother and sister in some kind of spiritual or emotional sense. She kept saying things like, "It's just like the way real siblings can talk for hours about nothing," or, "You two look so much alike, I'm surprised you haven't figured out you're actually related." I thought she was just being bizarre, but it kept escalating. At one point, she showed up at one of our family gatherings with this family tree thing that supposedly proves Daniel and I could be distant cousins. The family laughed it off, but the whole thing left me feeling unsettled. I'm not sure why she's so obsessed with this narrative, but she even started calling us the twins in front of other people, which made me feel super uncomfortable. Talked to Daniel about it a few times, and he says I'm overthinking it, that Valerie is just trying to get under my skin. But at this point, I'm not so sure. I feel like Valerie is intentionally trying to paint us as siblings to make me feel uncomfortable and to undermine our relationship. And it's really starting to mess with my head. We're supposed to get married in a few months, but now I'm seriously considering calling it off. I don't know if I can marry into a family that has this kind of weird, toxic dynamic. I don't want to feel like a part of this twisted narrative that's being forced on us. Daniel says I'm letting Valerie win by even thinking about this, but it's messing with my head so much that I don't know if I can go through with it. So AITA for thinking about calling off my wedding because of Valerie's insistence that Daniel and I are siblings? Should I just brush it off like Daniel wants? Or is this a sign that something deeper is wrong here? Just to clarify, we're definitely not siblings or related in any way, shape, or form. Valerie has no evidence or reason to believe this. It's all just her weird fixation. Also, Daniel and I are both adamant about not being related in any way. We've been to family gatherings, and nobody in the family has mentioned this before, but Valerie is definitely the only one who keeps pushing this narrative. Get it? For those who are saying that I should not let this ruin my marriage, something that I forgot to add in this post was that she brings this up constantly. In family group chats, social situations, even in front of the children in this family. In public, when she brings this up, me and my fiance get weird looks, and even the children of the family have been asking me if me and Daniel are actually brother and sister or not, which, to have to explain to a child that it's just the family's humor doesn't cut it. I've tried avoiding her, but Daniel's father claims it's me being sensitive and cruel, but I have actually lost sleep over this. Daniel told me a few days ago to just ignore it, and it's just a funny joke, but when you become the butt of the joke, it's not funny anymore. His MIL has even met my family and questioned them about whether they had any distant family when we were looking at MY wedding dresses, and to me, That is where it went too far. I love my fiance with every fiber of my being, but he isn't defending me at all when I tell them that bringing up the fact that me and my fiance could be in an incestuous relationship makes me uncomfortable. I feel completely alone on this, and I don't want to think about ruining our soon-to-be marriage, but I have considered it. Will I ultimately choose that? No, but I don't know if I want to be with someone who completely undermines my feels for the sake of his MIL, who ultimately does not have his nor my best interest at heart. I will bring this up to him again later today, or at a later date. I'll keep you all updated. Edit. A lot of you have a point. I don't think my fiance is a red flag though. I'm assuming that is just how he and his family joke with each other, and since I'm not really the joking type, maybe I just don't understand it. But you are one of the more understanding comments, which a lot of the others are not, and they just don't see how this has affected me and strained my relationship with my soon-to-be family. I've tried cutting off the MIL, but my fiance and his father convinced me not to, and so it feels like I simply can't win in this situation. I texted my fiance about this post in the comments, and he told me if I bring it up again, he will just remove me from the family group chat entirely. I feel as though he is mad at me, which maybe I have overreacted, but I'm not really the confrontational type, and he knows that, and it's his family. Since I am his soon-to-be wife, he should be understanding of that, and of my boundaries, but he shuts me down each time, and I kind of feel like the AH now for making it such a big deal. He wants me to apologize to his family for the sake of peace, and to just go along with it in the sake of good fun, but doing that makes me feel like I am pushing aside my own feelings of the matter for the sake of a weird joke the MIL made. Should I apologize, or should I stand my ground? It feels like the latter to me. Story 62. AMI. The AH for telling my boyfriend I feel violated? A few weeks ago, I woke up to my boyfriend of 4 years trying to stick his you-know-what in me, and I feel violated and don't know what to do because when I bring it up, he centers his own feelings about it, and I end up comforting him. I have never said that this was okay to do. In fact, it never came to mind he'd do something like this because I told him my ex graped me that way once. It went a bit different that time, yeah. He asked, I said no, then I woke up to him doing it anyway. This time it just happened. I woke up to him dry humping me, then pulling my pants down and trying to enter me. I jumped out of bed and asked what he was doing. He told me because I didn't stop the dry humping, that he assumed I was awake enough to say anything about it that moment and not actively trying to process WTF is going on. I wanted it. I immediately told him that no, I never want to be penetrated in my sleep. In fact, that's incredibly triggering and terrifying for me considering my past. He started crying and I thought it was because he felt bad for doing something so completely violating. But instead, he looked up at me and said, "Do you really think I'm the kind of guy to hurt you like that?" And then he said that I was cruel for comparing him to someone so awful. I said the actions were what I was comparing, not him wholly as a person. And yes, to acknowledge the reality and depth of what he'd done, I felt it was entirely necessary to tell him how similar his behavior in that moment was to my ex's. Am I supposed to lie and tell him it isn't? I can't consent in my sleep. I am now fully awake and would never consent to someone advancing on me sexually while I am asleep. I thought I made that clear enough, but apparently not. He's been so distant from me since this whole ordeal. I get one-word answers and grunts from him, and only when I bring up the incident do I actually get full sentences out of him. But every time, it's just him telling me how cruel I am for standing by my comparison, and how I must not love him if I view him in that light. I have tried to get him to see my perspective here, but it just doesn't work. He just gets pissy again, or he cries, or he tells me how I must feel about him, instead of just actually listening to how I feel, and not doing what he did again. I originally wrote this for Facebook, but they removed it, and I need advice, and it won't allow me to edit the censored words. I'm sorry. Story 63. AMI. The AH for refusing to change my baby's name? I, 24F, am 7 months pregnant. My husband and I are expecting our first child together, and we have never been more excited. Other headmies. I'm the youngest of 2 siblings, and my brother had the first grandkid. He had my nephew, who's 8 years old, when I was 16. He and my Sil decided to name my nephew after my brother, who is also named after my father. When I was 18, my dad died in a car accident. L of 5. I had never experienced a loss so much. I'm close to both my parents, and losing my dad was terrible. He'd never see me graduate or walk me down the aisle. When I found out I was having a boy, my husband and I began discussing names, and I told him I had wanted my dad's name somewhere in the name as an honor to my dad. We decided on giving my son my dad's name as a middle name. When we told my family, my Sil was upset because I was taking away the name from her son. My dad's name was Richard, as is my brother named Richard, and my nephew. However, to keep the confusion, my Sil and brother decided to call my nephew RJ, kind of like a Richard Jr., while not being the junior. because we never grew up calling my brother Junior or anything like that. Anyways, I told my sil, we don't call my nephew Richard, and it's not like we'd call my son Richard either. It'd just be a middle. She was still mad that I was taking a name from her, and I explained I was using the name for my dad. She said she had named their son after my dad, and I told her they had named him after my brother, aka her son's dad. I told her I would be using the name regardless if she liked it or not, because the name held a special, deeper meaning to me. She's ignoring me, and my family thinks I did nothing wrong, and I don't think so either. She's convinced I am. Am I the AH? Story 64. Am I the AH for telling my girlfriend she was the perpetrator, not the victim, in her trauma? My 25M girlfriend, 24F, and I have been dating for about a year. I'll call her Casey here. We have lived together for 2 months. A few hours ago, Casey approached me saying that she wanted to talk about something serious. At first, I didn't know what to expect, but she wanted to share something traumatic that had happened to her before we met, and she asked if I would be willing to listen. I of course said yes, I would, if she'd be willing to share. Casey hesitated for a second, like she wasn't sure about telling me, but then gave me the full story. What happened was, when she was a university student, she had a crush on a pizza guy. He worked at a small shop near her apartment, and he would often deliver to her. She wanted to ask him out, but she wasn't sure how, so she consulted her friends. Her friend group talked over it, and then one brought up the suggestion of answering the door in lingerie. The others jumped onto the idea quickly, and while Casey had doubts, they quickly convinced her to try it. They apparently even went shopping for the lingerie together, put on makeup, did her hair, and ordered a pizza. When the guy came, she did exactly as her friend suggested. She opened the door in skimpy lingerie. The pizza guy initially didn't address it, but Casey, desperate, pushed the topic. She asked him, "What do you think about my outfit?" He responded, "Dude, please don't do that," and then left. At this point in the story, Casey was near tears, and she told me how embarrassed and sick she felt. I almost expected more from the story, but she was finished. I then said, you do realize that you weren't the victim but the perpetrator, right? To issue. She literally recoiled at this comment. She elaborated by blaming everybody else, her friends for tricking her, society in general, and even the pizza guy that she sexually harassed. To this I responded that she's like those guys who touch themselves in hotels, intentionally getting the maids to walk in on them. She insisted it was completely different, and a full-blown argument ensued. She finished the argument with, "I came to you to feel better and now I feel worse," and stormed away. I don't even know. I feel so disgusted with her right now. Was I the asshole for my comments when she felt vulnerable? Story 65. Am I the AH for not going to my stepson's house? I'm female, 67. Spouse is male, 65. I'll call him Chuck. Chuck and I have both been divorced for over 29 years. We dated since 2011 and got married last year. I have 2 children from my ex, and Chuck has 3. All the kids are grown and have family of their own. We have Christmas separately, kids, then his on different days. My kids adore Chuck and treat respectfully and view him as part of the family. We have 10 grandkids between the 2 of us. Chuck's daughter and oldest son are friendly but reserved around. That's fine. Now his second-born son takes every effort to let me know I do not belong. For Christmas, he buys a personal gift for Chuck, pictures of grandkids, and nothing for me. I really don't want a separate gift. I just want to be included in the pictures with the grandkids. The kids have known me since birth, so I'm not a stranger. When we got in the car to go home, hour drive, Chuck apologized for his son's rude behavior. I told him I would no longer be attending any events at his son's house. Chuck was not happy, and he let me know. Not only do I feel unwelcome at his son's house, Chuck has yet to speak to his son privately about not including me. AITAS for not going and expecting Chuck to stand up for me. For some reason I can't fix the typo, so please excuse them. Story 66. Am I the AH for blocking my ex's number during my custody time? I, 36M, share a child, 11M, with my ex, 39F. We were only together a short time and have been broken up since my son was 1. My ex has been with her husband for 8 years. He has 2 older kids, and they have had 2 kids together. My ex is incredibly nosy. Throughout our time apart, she has wanted to know details about my life, such as, how is work going? Who am I dating? How old is your girlfriend? What race is she? Etc. She is also judgmental and wants you to know her concerns about how you are living your life. I keep these things close to the vest, and unless I think it affects our son, I do not tell her anything about my life. For the most part, I no longer get the random judgmental texts about some details of my life she has concerns about. A couple of years ago, my ex and her family moved to my neighborhood. I believe this is, in part, to keep tabs on me. Since moving to the neighborhood, during my custody time with our son particularly, my ex has made up excuses to stop by my house for various reasons. I stopped responding to her requests during my custody time and went to court to address the issue. We are only supposed to communicate through a co-parenting app. No phone calls. I recognize she might have some emergency with our son during her custody time, so I do not block her during those times. But during my custody time, I block her number from my phone. Our neighborhood had a few break-ins over the holidays. No one was hurt. They seem to have targeted homes where families were gone. This week was my custody time with my son, so my ex's number is blocked. A few nights ago, someone tried to break into my ex's house around 2 a.m., but they stopped when a light came on. My ex called me a bunch of times, but I obviously did not answer. Her husband was out of town. Later that morning, I received a call from my mom. She was livid. I would let my ex be in that situation, and that I need to get rid of these silly rules around our communication. I let her know that these rules are a direct result of my ex's actions. Am I the AH? Edit. My ex can contact me through the app at all times, including my custody time. Story 67. My GF heart is for her ex. I, 29M, was looking at my GFS 24F TikTok, and I noticed her ex and baby's father had messaged her on Xmas Eve and earlier in the year. She did not respond. We have talked multiple times about if any EXS or randoms message we need to let each other know. Anyone. In early December, a random guy messaged her, and she did not tell me. She said BC we were arguing that day. And months before that, a guy from high school messaged her on Snap, and she said he was nobody and was just ignoring her. Back to what I noticed today. I then went into her messages because I wanted to know if she was talked to him on another app. I saw where she was texting her friends about it and saying how heartbroken she was seeing him reach put, that she still has feelings for him and was crying. I also texted another friend. She was 98% sure to just ignore him, but 2% wanted to reach out and try to build their family. She said that her head was with me. Because I would raise her child better, but her heart wants her baby's father. I know it was wrong to go through messages, but I was just heartbroken to see her getting messages and not telling me for the third time. Also good to note they were together for months. We've been together almost a year. Part of me thinks I might be overreacting, but this is the third guy messaging her and she's not telling me about. There's more too. She doesn't post me on her socials, and after a year I haven't met any of her family. They don't even know about me. I truly love her, and I love the baby, but I think I need to run. Am I overthinking this? Is it normal for her to have doubts? I mean, he is her baby's dad? Or am I right to be ready to leave? Story 68. Am I the AH for telling my girlfriend I have every right to defend my home after someone started kicking my door in? I, 27M, and my girlfriend, 26F, have been together for 2 years. I'm a black man raised in the inner city. She's a white girl from the suburbs. We grew up different. And normally that's okay. But last week, someone tried to break into my house and it started causing problems. I'm taking care of my mother now that she's getting up in age. She just had surgery on her legs and cannot walk. I need to stress this. She physically can't support herself, so I'm doing everything for her. Her bedroom is in the back of the house, right next to the back door that leads to the porch. At 2 a.m. last Wednesday, my mom calls me scared, saying someone's trying to break into the house and she can hear them banging on the back door. My girlfriend was staying with me in my bedroom when I got the call. I jumped up, grabbed my gun, and ran to the back and started yelling for whoever was there to get away because they were still banging on the door when I got there. Things got quiet, so I checked the camera on the porch and I saw them standing there. It was 3 people, and one of them said, "Keep going, it doesn't matter." So I used the speaker on my camera to say I have a weapon, it's loaded, and if you kick that door one more time, I will shoot. My girlfriend is behind me at that point screaming not to shoot them, and it isn't worth it. The 3 people on the porch don't move, so I put my phone down, cock my weapon, and say I'm going to count to 3. And if you aren't gone by the time I get to 3, I'm firing. As soon as I counted 1, they ran away. And my girlfriend was screaming at me that there's never a reason to threaten to shoot someone, ever. I told her, we are not having this conversation right now, and we need to call the police. Yes, I should have done earlier, but I was too worried about my mother to think about it. The police get called. They come out and see shoe prints on my fence and on the back door from where they were kicking, and start patrolling the area but don't find them. When the police leave, my girlfriend starts yelling at me and saying she can't believe I'd be willing to shoot someone because they kicked my door. I said it isn't about the house, it's the fact that my mother is laying in bed helpless, just a few feet from that door, and they could have done anything. Stole things, killed her, raped her, a combination. I have no idea and I wasn't taking any chances. She says there is never a reason to hurt or kill someone, ever, because violence isn't the answer. It just makes you like the person you're hurting. I told her the only reason she thinks violence isn't the answer is because she's never had someone try to physically harm her before. And I'm not going to apologize for what I did, because I had every right to defend myself, my home, my mother, and her. She's been angry at me ever since and will barely even speak to me. I'm trying to consider her perspective, I really am, but I'm not going to give up my ability to defend myself because she doesn't believe violence will ever be necessary. AMI? The AH? Story 69. AMI. The AH for telling my brother's girlfriend to leave if she didn't like my cooking? My brother recently introduced his girlfriend to the family. She was very nice when we first met, and I immediately invited them to dinner the week after. So, a little background, my brother and I were born here in the US, but we grew up in France until I came back for college, so for majority of my life I grew up eating French cuisine, so that's what I made for this dinner. I made roast chicken with garlic cloves, fresh rosemary, some herbe de Provence, and salt and pepper. I also made tartiflette mainly for the kids, ratatouille, and a salad, since they came over for dinner on January 6th. I also made galette de roi and had ice cream and a couple bottles of French wine. I thought it would be fun to make her food that we grew up on, and honestly, it's the kind of food I'm good at, so I didn't want a chance messing it up. An hour before said dinner, my brother texted me and asked if it would be okay to bring along his girlfriend's mom because she was in town visiting, and I said, of course, the more the merrier. They arrived and we started eating, and the girlfriend was very different around her mom. Both of them kept saying, "What are these potatoes? They need more seasoning, girl." And, "Your chicken looks like it needs some more seasoning. Salt and pepper aren't seasoning." When I explained that it was my French grandmother's recipe and it has aromatics in it for flavor, they said it wasn't enough and that white people don't know how to properly season their food, the veggies tasted bland, blah blah blah, and don't worry, I'll give you my recipe. The whole time my husband and my brother were internally panicking because they knew I poured my heart into this. My 8-year-old son was going, "This is my favorite, Mom, it's very good," as I was about to burst out into tears. LOL. Then dessert time came, and they both refused the galette de roi because almonds in a cake? And said they're just gonna have the ice cream, and of course, I only had vanilla, deadpan face. So I kind of blew up on them and called them ignorant and uncultured, held the door open until they got their stuff and left. My brother later called to apologize, but also said I shouldn't have called them names and insulted them, and the girlfriend texted and said she didn't mean any harm and was just playing around because her mom likes to play around and is old-fashioned about food. But I don't think I believe that, and I told her so. I told her she's welcome to date my brother because I don't meddle with his relationships, but she's not welcome in my house again. I don't know if I could ever be open to having them in my house again after that. I'm so proud of my food and what it meant to me only to be disrespected like that. AITA for kicking them out? My brother said his girlfriend felt really bad and wanted to make it up to me, and that I shouldn't have kicked them out like that, and I overreacted. AMI? The AH? Did I overreact? Story 70. AMI. The AH for calling out my wife for always being late. My wife is constantly late. For everything. If we're getting an Uber, she keeps the driver waiting. A train to catch, we will miss it. Meeting friends. We're late because she's doing her hair/makeup. It's absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I think of myself as very punctual, and I see it as a matter of respect to not keep people waiting. Tonight she said she would call me in 15 minutes. I went for a walk so I could talk to her, and she called me 35 minutes later. AMI. The AH for telling her that she has no respect for people's time and that she need to get better. She ended up saying it didn't matter and that I need to be more patient. Fucking fuming. I'm so sick of it. Edit 1. Hi everyone, thanks for the comments and feedback. I'm honestly a bit sensitive tonight, so forgive me for venting. Reply to some questions. She doesn't have ADHD, but I do appreciate the reasoning and thoughts behind this. Good to know for the friends I do have with ADHD to be a bit more patient. Edit 2. She's just argued with me for 20 minutes on the phone saying it's my fault for not appreciating that she was busy and that I didn't plan a definite time for her to call, even though she said in 15 minutes. So somehow I need to apologize and it's my fault for getting upset. I said I think it's important to tell each other when we're upset by something, and this could easily be fixed, but just apologizing and trying to do better in future. But she said she has nothing to apologize for, and I should apologize for upsetting her and ruining our night. It's a funny old life. I think I'll try harder in future to not tell her my feelings or when I'm upset, and just bury it deep insides. Seems like the healthiest thing to do. Story 71. AMI. The AH for kicking the mother out of the delivery room? Me, 34F, and my husband, 35M, have two children, one 14-year-old and one 3-year-old. A few months ago, my Bill and his wife found out that they could not have kids, so my Bill asked for me to be their surrogate. I agreed because my Bill is family and we grew up together and he has always wanted kids. I want the way. I made it clear to my husband at the start that I was only doing this for my Bill because his wife has always been rude and always trying to one-up me, and we did not have the best relationship. But when I was 7 months pregnant with the parrot kid, we started talking about birth plans. And that is when the drama started. Bill's wife told me I would be giving birth in an NUD Saint community with no pain meds or anything, and she said that it was part of her religion, but me, my husband, and Bill shut that down really fast. We decided on a hospital birth with my husband, Bill, and his wife in the room the last 2 months of the pregnancy. She was sulking around crying, saying that we do not respect her because she cannot carry a child. So, one day when I was 9 months pregnant, my Bill called me saying that maybe I should consider having my baby in an NUD Saint colony because his wife has been crying about it for weeks. I put that down and told them that I'm giving birth in a hospital, and that's that. Fast forward to when I give birth. My husband drives me to the hospital. Me and my husband shut that down and told them that I'm giving birth in a hospital, and that's that. Fast forward to when I give birth. My husband drives me to the hospital and calls my BIL and his wife. They get to the hospital when we do. But a few minutes before I give birth, I was in pain. I have birthed 2 babies before this, and it could not compare to the pain. When I would show signs of pain, like crying or groaning, she would scoff or say a snarky remark. The last straw was when I was about to push and she told me, "Don't scream, or else." Every single person in the room looked at her and the nurse kicked her out. My Bill did not care about his wife getting kicked out. He wanted to see his baby be born. A few hours after I gave birth, me and my husband were talking, and he said that I was a bit harsh to kick BIL's wife out because she is the mother. So am I the AH? Story 72. Am I the AH for calling the cops on my upstairs neighbors? So this happened Thursday night, and I am feeling conflicted about what I did. I had just gotten off work at 10 p.m. and came home around 10:30 p.m. I was exhausted from working all day. I came home and tended to my 6-month-old baby. At this time, my upstairs neighbors has loud music going, stomping their feet, and it sounded like a party. As I was feeding my son, I also was trying to put him to sleep, but upstairs neighbors was being too loud. So I sent my husband upstairs to ask them to turn down the music, but they didn't answer. At this point, my baby was done feeding and was super fussy because he was tired. I got fed up and told my husband that I'm going to call the non-emergency police number and report them. 10 p.m. is quiet time. I live in apartments. So I called the non-emergency police and reported a noise disturbance. They sent an officer out, and the officer fixed the problem quickly. By this time, it was 12:30 a.m. Both me and my husband was tired, and our baby finally fell asleep. I told a couple friends about it. They said I was the AH for calling the cops. I would like to know if I was or not. I'm also a part-time college student, as well as working full-time. 73. My fiance cheated on me with his ex of 10 years for 6 months, and I became a homewrecker. I was about to be married in a month to the love of my life until I woke up yesterday to a text from a girl who said I am dating her boyfriend. Long story short, for the past 6 months while we were preparing for our wedding, making long-term plans, my fiance has been in contact with his ex-GF of 10 years, this person, whose name I didn't even know until yesterday because from the very start he picked a random girl on the Instagram and told me that was his ex, which again wasn't his ex but a random-ass person. And until yesterday his ex thought of me as a homewrecker and thought I knew all about her. His mom even was in conversation with his ex's mom until October, where they made commitments to meet each other, and then in December his mom talked to my mom and asked for blessings, since that's how it works in our culture. But due to a death in my family, we didn't actually get to meet, but it was supposed to happen in a few days. He lied to me about every single thing. It almost feels like he tried to trap me. But he has told his ex that he doesn't want anything to do with her last month, which I found out yesterday through her. This is the man that I loved with every inch of me, the man I gave everything, the man I was ready to put my life away for, my dreams, the man who was a complete different and opposite version of himself until the day before yesterday. Yet a huge part of me wants to forgive, wants us to take time and redo things the correct way. Even after knowing his reality and seeing his lies, this is the man who I've loved the most and who has hurt me the most. What should I do? Until yesterday, his ex was ready to be married to him. Now, after knowing the whole truth, she has backed off. Their relationship was very different from mine. Theirs has always been extremely toxic, but mine was perfect like a fairy tale until yesterday when the whole thing collapsed. Can a man really change? Can he become the person he always wanted to be but didn't become? Can we try it again one more time and make it work? Is a man capable of that? I do think he loves me. Very. Because if he didn't, there were plenty opportunities he could have just went back to her. But he stayed. We had problems, and we worked through them, but you now. But the connection he started with her, he couldn't put it to end until the circumstances brought it to an end. Eat it. He can't change. He's lied about every single thing. He ruined a lot of good things for me. I am gonna leave him. I feel damaged, I feel used, and I feel like everything I can't handle. I can't take, but he is not the solution to my pain. Story 74. Am I the AH for making my husband return his new puppy? My husband, Luke, has always liked small dogs. We've had some in the past, which passed away due to old age. Currently, we have 2 large hound mixes and 2 cats. We've got a good-sized rural property, and they all cuddle together and sleep in the bed with us. So when a friend offered us a mini Chihuahua puppy, I encouraged Luke to get him. We've had plenty of pets, so I knew to take things slow with the introduction. Rub the puppy down with our scent, let everyone sniff each other, give treats, hold the puppy carefully so it didn't get trampled on in the excitement, and so on. I was not expecting our dogs to suddenly display a prey drive towards it. For context, a few years ago when we brought home the youngest dog as a small puppy, our older dog was ecstatic. They loved one another right away, the cats would groom the puppy, it was great. I hoped it would be the same, and our cats loved this new puppy. But our dogs immediately started whining, trying to take the puppy from us, snapping at its face, and drooling. They've only ever acted this way towards the squirrels and rabbits they see on the other side of our fence, so I immediately didn't feel safe leaving the puppy alone with them. We both work, and we don't have or plan to have children, so I was afraid it would only be a matter of time until we came home to a dead puppy, where I might be the asshole. Luke asked me to give it the weekend to see if the dogs took to the puppy, but I insisted that night we needed to return the puppy to the breeder. I just could not shake the worry that the instant we went to sleep or left the house, the puppy would not be safe, and I wanted what was best for the puppy. I told Luke that when our current dogs were much older or had passed, we could try getting a small dog again, but our hounds are each only 2 and 3 years old, so obviously/hopefully that's many years away. My husband is so sad, and I feel awful. Am I the asshole? Was there something else I could have done? 75. Am I the AH for not giving my boyfriend my savings for a grand wedding party? I am getting married in 10 months. But the problem is, I have 40 lakh in my name, given by my mother. That money is her retirement fund that she distributed equally among me and my sister. Out of that money, I want to spend only 10 lakh on my wedding, so that the rest I can have as a safety net for myself. Things are different. Things are different on my boyfriend's side. They are currently short on money, and all that they will spend on the wedding will come from bank loans. I don't want to make a big deal of my wedding. I just want a peaceful ceremony with close friends and family. His side of the family wants to have a big celebration because he is the only son, and they have planned and hoped for his wedding pretty much since the day he was born. Now the dilemma is that my boyfriend asked me to give him money for that celebration, at least 50% if not all. I refused, saying that I don't believe in spending my life savings to please random people that his family happens to know. I want to save that money. He says that the only reason he asked for it was because he thought he could count on me, but now that I have refused, he will figure out something. He said all this very calmly, but now I feel bad. What should I do? Story 76. Am I the AH for telling her she deserves nothing? I don't want to ramble too much, even though I probably will, but I'll try and get the basics down. My great-grandmother passed away recently. I was very close to her. I'm also very close to my granddad, her son. My granddad has a half-sister who I've never met a day in my life. She moved to Spain like 35 years ago and never came back. We live in the UK, not even for visits. My granddad has visited her a number of times, but she's never come here, and my Gigi would hear of her only on special occasions and the odd phone call every now and then. My Gigi doesn't like planes, so she'd never been to Spain because she couldn't. My Gigi had been ill for quite some time. We all looked after her. Me, my mother, and my granddad. The whole time my Gigi was ill, my great-aunt never visited. She'd just phone on the odd occasion. Anyway, let's skip to after the funeral of my Gigi, which my great-aunt came from Spain for. We all went to her home to start organizing things. My Gigi didn't have specific things to go to anyone in her will, just that her stuff was to be sorted, and my granddad and his half-sister were to have the sale of her home. My great-aunt turned up to the house with empty suitcases to pack things to take back to Spain with her. From the moment I met her, I didn't like her. Her vibe, her attitude, just her in general. We were each in different rooms organizing through things with boxes. My great-aunt was in the bedroom, packing anything of value in her suitcases. My Gigi owned this lovely porcelain doll which I've loved since I was a child. That's the only thing I wanted. I went into the bedroom to get it, seeing it in my great-aunt's suitcase, among my Gigi's jewelry and other fancy things. I picked up the doll And my aunt turned and said, "Be careful, put it back." I told her I loved it, and it was the only thing I wanted of my GGs. She kind of brushed me off and chuckled and walked towards me to try and take it out of my hands. I moved away from her, which caused us to have a small argument. Mystery. My granddad and mom entered the room after hearing us. My granddad likes to keep peace, so was trying to defuse the situation. While my mom was telling me from the sidelines, "You can have the doll," to which my aunt kept saying, "No, she can't." I got really annoyed very quickly by the whole situation and said, "She's taking everything else of value she can get her hands on." My granddad said, "It's okay." Like I said, he hates confrontation and would rather keep peace. I said, "It's not okay," and left the room to go and wrap up the doll to put in my bag. My aunt followed me, constantly saying, "The doll is mine to have. I love that doll. I've always loved it too." I snapped at her. "The fact you haven't given a family for over 30 years, or didn't even come when your mother was ill, and only came after she died, and thinking that you are entitled to anything is crazy. You deserve nothing." Sounds dramatic, but you would have heard a pin drop in that room after I said that. I walked off to go put the doll in my car, and my granddad awkwardly came outside and said, "She really wants the doll." I said no. My granddad said, "I'll give you some money from the sale of the house." I said, "I don't want money from the sale of the house, I want the doll." My mom and aunt came outside, and my aunt was upset, talking about how much she also loved this doll and that she would really appreciate if I let her have it again. I said no and then said, "Where have you been? You're in there gathering up all her fancy jewelry and other expensive things, and even that's too much. You're not having this doll? It's mine." She got even more upset, and I just got in my car and drove off. My mom called me later on and told me my aunt won't drop the subject. My mom was just as annoyed as I was. My granddad also phoned me and again tried to convince me to give her the doll in exchange for something else. Yet again I said no, and tried to explain to him that what she was doing felt so wrong, because she didn't give a shit for 35 years. AMI. The AH for standing my ground on this? Story 77. AMI. The AH for cutting contact with my father's family side after finding out he had an affair for over a year? I, 17M, witnessed a dark secret about my father, 43M, in summer of 2024. It turned out he was having an affair with single mother, 50F, since the beginning of 2024. It was a huge choke to me, my sister, 14F, and my mother, 43F. From last summer to this day, we are still grieving and shocked that he lied to us all this time and he was having sex with another woman behind our backs. And now all our interactions are just money rights battle between my parents. Now my mother is planning on the divorce this year, even though it's hard due to financial troubles. And we have hope that the court will settle everything money related, including child support. However, my father's mom, 75F, noticed how we never talk about my father. For context, we all came to Barcelona to live there 3 years ago now, so the rest of our families are in the homeland. Anyway, we told her, and suddenly she started judging my mother and saying her son could never do this, and it was just a mistake, and we should get back together, even though we repeatedly told her he doesn't want to and doesn't acknowledge what he is doing. Her lack of understanding and her siding with him made us fumming and OFC. She told everyone on my father's family side except my cousins. What really broke us is that my aunt, 45F, who was the closest to my mother, decided to support him in saying it's not a big deal and she should expect it for the sake of me and my sister, even though we would never allow shit like this to narrated. This reopened my mother's wound and eventually she cut off contact. Now I have to mention that I miss my cousins, and they don't deserve to be not spoken with, especially when I haven't seen them in 3 years. However, they are being actively used to sort of spy on us, learn on any information I or my sister might say, and they would tell my grandma and aunt about it. That forced me to block them off my contact, and soon did with the rest of the family. I also told my grandma before blocking her that she disappointed me and my mother, and if she kept on supporting this cheater and the fanoff, I will never come back to the homeland and step foot in her house again. I know it sounds cruel, but I genuinely can't with them anymore. It's like they were lying to me all my life. Obviously they called me a jerk and a brat, but I felt it's more of a projection on them. I was never close to them anyway, and I always liked my mom's family better, who all of them supported her, by the way. Plus, I wouldn't mind not visiting them, even if I got my DNI and was able to go there again. Am I the jerk here? Story 78. AMI. The AH for not letting my 26F brothers, 26M girlfriend, 32F, stay over our condo for more than 3 days a week? My twin brother and I recently moved into my new condo, It's a spacious 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's my first condo, and I wanted my brother to live with me and help me to pay the mortgage by renting from me. Now, it's his first time moving out of our mom's house. He recently got his first girlfriend, and they are in the honeymoon phase. She's 32 and lives with her parents in their house because her mother is sick. I know she doesn't want to be around that all the time and would rather be at our condo all of the time. If they had it their way, she would be over all the time. But the truth is, she is very loud and messy, and not someone I can spend more than a few days with at a time. She says she won't bother me when she comes over, but I'm starting to see that that isn't really possible. She leaves dishes, makeup, and random crafts on all of the tables. At one point, she was here for 6 days straight over holiday vacation, and that's when I decided to set the 3-day-a-week boundary. My brother and her are very upset, and she says she feels unwelcome because of this. But the truth is, I've never been mean to her. She's actually mean to me now, and she's calling him crying and threatening to come grab all her stuff and never come back because she doesn't feel welcome. I can hear her wailing upstairs on the phone with my brother in the first floor living room, and it's not even on speaker. I think she's overreacting, and I also think she's being kind of manipulative. Am I the asshole for saying she can only stay over 3 nights a week? Story 79. Am I the AH for telling my mom I won't babysit my sibling so she can go on dates? I, 17F, have a 4-year-old half-sibling, Emma, from my mom's second marriage. My mom divorced Emma's dad 2 years ago, and since then she's been trying to get back into dating. I get it. She's young, early 40s, and deserves to have a life. But here's the problem. She keeps expecting me to be her built-in babysitter whenever she gets a date. At first, I agreed here and there because I thought it'd just be once in a while. But now, it feels like every weekend or random weekday evening, she's asking me to cancel plans or skip studying to watch Emma so she can put herself out there. I love Emma, but I'm not her parent. I have my own life, and I've told my mom multiple times that I don't want to be on call for her social life. The breaking point happened last Friday. My mom told me on Thursday night that she had a date Friday evening, so I needed to watch Emma. I already had plans with my friends to go see a movie, so I told her no. She got super upset and said it's my responsibility as the older sibling to help out. I stood my ground and said she should either find a sitter or reschedule the date. She ended up canceling her date and has been giving me the cold shoulder ever since. She's made comments about how ungrateful I am and how this generation doesn't care about family. I tried to explain that I'm happy to help occasionally, but not at the expense of my own life. And she said I'm being selfish. My friends say I'm right to set boundaries, but my mom's guilt trips are starting to get to me. Am I the AH for refusing to babysit so she could go on a date? Story 80. Am I the AH for getting my dad into trouble by telling my mom he wasn't spending the child support she paid on me? My mom was in an accident when I, 17M, was 14 and was left disabled as a result. Because of this, my parents decided it would be for the best if my dad had custody of me because mom had a long recovery ahead of her and she'd need a lot of help herself. My mom paid child support to my dad for me, only it was never spent on me. It went on his stepkids. He saved it for them and never used it on me, even when I did need money for things. He had me overdraw on my school lunch account and then wouldn't pay the balance. I had to do it with money from my grandparents, even though he was the one who last minute said we had nothing for me to take a lunch from home because his stepkids were getting more for theirs because it wasn't enough. When I needed supplies for a school project, he refused to pay for them. I wasn't allowed to get a haircut, even though the stepkids, my dad and his wife, all got them whenever. His wife was getting her hair dyed every other month, and his stepdaughter got highlights for her birthdays. I got way less than the stepkids for food too. So lots of stuff like that was going on while I was there. There was a lot of stuff like that, and while mom was deep in recovery, I didn't want to upset her with it, but eventually I told her because she wasn't giving her disability money from my care for it to go to kids who are nothing to her. My mom was so pissed, and so were my grandparents. I moved in with my mom, and my grandparents moved in with us so my dad couldn't fight against us. Then she got the courts involved, and they didn't like it. I had proof, or well, my mom brought the proof I had for the courts. They decided dad should pay it back, since he was abusing it and not providing for me the way the court order said. He only got away with it because mom didn't see me as much as she otherwise would have. My dad and his wife are pissed at me for doing it when one of the stepkids has a long-term medical issue. They said I could have been understanding, and I was old enough at 16 when I told my mom and moved back in with her to know medical issues take priority. They said it benefited my family, and I might not have got a comfortable time there, but I got enough. My mom said the stepkids got enough though, and that's why I wasn't wrong. But my dad and his wife accused me of acting out of spite. Am I the AH? Story 81. AMI, the AH for reporting my father to CPS? I am honestly not sure whether or not I am due to family values, etc. My father has 9 children, only 3 of which live with him, age 12, 5, and 2. All that he had with his current partner, their house is a mess, and I mean cannot see the floor of some rooms carpet full of piss good and feces mess. They don't clean their kids' clothes and they don't shower. They have black mold growing on the ceiling of some of their rooms, and despite it being basically inhabitable for humans, they've brought a cat into their shitstorm of a house. Their children do not know stability or discipline. I'm not saying hit them. There is just no consequences when they do something wrong. They have neglected 2 dogs to death and actively abused my sister and I when we used to live there. I'm just not sure if reporting them was the right thing to do. Because of, family values and stuff, they're my family. And as much as I want their children out, I don't want to hurt them. I'll show pictures of their house upon message request. I have a follow-up call, TMW, which I'll update after maybe. Story 82. AMI. The AH for being pissed that he did nothing? Today was my oldest son's competition. We had to wake up early. And I asked my husband to get the diaper bag ready and wake our 5-year-old up while I took a shower. When I got out, he was still laying in bed and hadn't done a single thing. I went into the kids' room and woke them up, and then started getting the diaper bag ready. Even when I went in there and said, I guess I have to get everything ready on top of taking my shower, he never got up. By the time we were walking out the door, I was pissed and had to use the bathroom since I hadn't had a chance yet. So I said, get everything in the car while I go to the bathroom and make sure we didn't forget anything. And the second I sit on the friggin' toilet, he tells our 13-year-old that I'm going to the bathroom to text some guy and that's why I go to the bathroom so much. I had my gallbladder removed and my gut is just now fixing itself after a stomach bug we had last week. When I got out of the bathroom and walked through the house, I tried to open the door and he locked me in. We have a double deadbolt, so a key is needed to unlock and to go get my car keys to unlock it. And I was absolutely raging by this point. And he still hadn't gotten anything in the car yet, no kids, no stroller, no bag, nothing. I regret it, but I was pissed and threw my keys at him and told him to go lock up the fucking house. I honestly ignored him all day today. Even ordered me, the kids, and our oldest team a pizza. Story 83. Husband's ex-wife shows up to our family holiday. Hi all. So here's my question. I've been married to my husband for 20 years. We have 2 gorgeous boys together. He was married to a woman before I came along, they had 1 son, and divorced when the son was 2. My husband was single for years before we got together. When we met, I was 26. He was 5 years older than me. We had known one another through social encounters, so we were friends. We were attracted to one another, but didn't know about each other. In 2003, we went out on a date and were immediately infatuated. We became engaged, and I became pregnant, and we had our first son in October 2004. We were married before our first child was born. In 2007, we had our second son, and we've been together ever since. We adore one another. His first son, my stepson, was easily involved in our family. We had him every single weekend, and every summer, fall, and winter holiday. It was seamless. I got along with his ex-wife, but something began to bother me. She would call him for no reason now. And as my stepson became older, and there was not such a big reason for the ex-wife to be involved in contacting my husband, she still continued to do so. She had gotten married and was content for a while, but eventually divorced the guy, going back to being single. Fast forward to this holiday season, she invited herself to our family Christmas. It's always been held at my husband's mother and father's home, which we call the farm, BC. It's a huge home located on hundreds of acres. What I didn't appreciate was the fact that I wasn't able to attend this year, BC. I have been struggling with severe health issues. I have fibromyalgia, lupus, and rheumatoid arthritis, among other health conditions. Not one person asked me if I was okay, with her just showing up to our family's traditional holiday, knowing that I couldn't make it B/C of my health issues. No one bothered to check on me or ask if I was okay with this woman being there while I'm home by myself. So, what are your thoughts? Story 84. AMI. The AH for not accepting my ex-boyfriend's closure? If you haven't seen my previous post, I will sum it up. My ex-boyfriend hasn't been particularly respectful to me recently, and while I've had a couple of days to process it, I received a message where he wanted to give closure to the situation and offer an apology. For context, he's depressed. We broke up in September, and he asked directly to stay friends. It wasn't me. He never communicated to me that me discussing my plans for university upset them, but when I got an offer, I texted him excited about it, as I am disabled, and the possibility of university was always so slim. But then he publicly posted about how I woke him from a nap. I wasn't aware he was sleeping. And is it not common to mute your phone when you're sleeping too? And that talking to him when school is killing him and he'll never go to uni is wild. All I wanted was to celebrate my happiness. I've struggled with my disability my entire life. A university offer was huge. I've also struggled with depression. In fact, they helped me through the worst depression of my life. With discussing to my close friend about it, I realized it was likely jealousy, but a reaction like that was unjustified. Posting on Twitter as if someone who has struggled since the beginning with academics hasn't struggled is low. I learned that I was, in fact, not the AH in this situation. With that, I confronted him and blocked him everywhere, but forgot to block his number. He sent me an essay-type message explaining the situation and giving an apology. AMI. The AH if I don't reply as I intended to cut him off entirely? Story 85. AMI. The AH for leaving my boyfriend at the grocery store after he acted like a total asshole? So, my boyfriend, 28M, and I, 23F, went grocery shopping together last night. Interesting thing. I hate grocery shopping with him because he always treats it like a game, grabbing random crap we don't need and making jokes about the boring things I put on the list. Like it's some kind of personal attack. I wasn't in the mood for his nonsense, but I figured I'd try to stay chill. Spoiler, it didn't work. Biscuit. We're halfway through the store, and he's already tossed in a bunch of overpriced snacks, fancy meats, and a random kitchen gadget we absolutely do not need. I reminded him, nicely, that we're sticking to the budget this month because I just paid a huge bill. And he completely flipped. He started making these snide comments like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were my financial manager, and maybe I should just Venmo you for every chip I eat." I told him to stop, but he just kept going, louder, like he wanted people to hear. "Why don't you write me a little shopping allowance, huh? Would that make you feel better?" People were definitely staring at this point, and I was mortified. I told him I was serious, we needed to stick to the essentials, and he rolled his eyes and said, "You're so uptight, no wonder people think you're controlling." That was it for me. I told him I wasn't doing this and started walking toward the car. He followed me halfway, still yelling, "Are you seriously leaving? Wow, real mature." But then turned back to the store, probably to pout or buy more unnecessary crap. I sat in the car for like 10 minutes, texting him to stop being dramatic and let's just finish the shopping and go home. He didn't reply, so I left him. He had his phone, his wallet, and plenty of options for getting home. When he got back later, he was pissed. He said I humiliated him by abandoning him, that I overreacted, and that I'm always trying to control him. But honestly, I don't think I overreacted at all. He acted like a complete child, picked a public fight over nothing, and made me feel like crap for trying to keep us on track financially. Now he's sulking and making me feel guilty, but I don't think I did anything wrong. AMI, the AH? 86. Breaking up with GF because they are still close with someone they were poly with? Long story short, my now ex-GF was previously married. Her best friend then started sleeping with her husband. Later, the best friend moved in with her and her husband. Everyone knew they were all having sex. Both women with the men but not with each other. And my now ex-GF told everyone then that the best friend moving in, because her ex-husband pitched a fit to make it happen, was destroying her. Then later, the best friend starts to take up for my now GF against her then husband once he found another girl. Then the best friend started stepping up and fulfilling needs that were previously unmet. This ordeal lasted for almost 4 years before it all fell apart, with each woman sleeping with YHE man and fulfilling each other's non-sexual needs. I call it poly. Let it be known, the best friend is a homosexual, will do anything to avoid being homeless with kids in tow, and has bounced around moving in with 7 or 9 men at different times over the last 14 years, 4 of which were with my now ex-GF and her then husband, with kids in tow. Now her oldest kid is mad, because mom is bed hopping again and want the kids with her. I was pushed, even after saying no to meet the best friends. My ex-GF and Rosa were only together a month. The thought of being around her best friend makes me sick to my stomach. I made it clear, there is no way I could ever have that toxicity in my life, and broke it off. AMI? The AH? Story 87. AMI? The AH for not inviting my sister to go to the cinema with me and my friend? I, 21F, turning 22 in February 2025, was invited to go to the cinema with a friend, 21F, and also turning 22 in February 2025, this weekend. My sister, 21 in January 2025, is also friends with my friend. However, my friend only invited me and not my sister. Nice. My sister is unemployed, so I know that if she were to go, I would have had to pay for her, which to me isn't exactly a fair exchange because I've already taken her to see it twice. One time even paying for my sister's own friend to see it as well. as a birthday present for my sister. My grandmother, who my sister and I have lived with since we were 8 and 7 because of family issues, told me that my sister is my friend's friend as well, and therefore should be allowed to come with us. I told her no, that my sister wasn't invited, and that it would be rude of me to bring her along if the plans were made for only myself and my friend, and my grandmother said I was getting worked up over it for no reason. I work Monday to Friday, 50 hours give or take, and I spend 99% of my weekends with my sister because I do love spending time with her and we get along really well. But I think I should be allowed to see my friends on my own sometimes too. So AMI, the AH? Story 88. AMI, the AH for wanting to see me BF instead of my friend. I, 17M, recently got a BF. We've been dating for just over a month and have been getting on really well. We always love hanging out with each other and will always see each other on the weekends. Now I'm in college, and because my college uses staggered timetables, me and my BF weren't able to see each other during the week other than a Thursday. So I would hang out with a high school friend of mine for the rest of the week. Then after Christmas, my BF's timetable changed, and he was able to hang out with me during our breaks, and we now hang out every Tuesday and Thursday. Because of this, I've started not seeing my friend as much, but I will still see them on a Wednesday and a Friday, as those are the days our timetables allow for us to see each other. So last Friday, I got to college early and sat outside by the outdoor heaters, and a few minutes later, one of my other friends showed up. They recognized me as we are kind of friends, but we have never really spoken. They sat with me and we were talking. Then my friend, we'll call her Sarah, showed up and gave me a really dirty look and said, "You know you really need to stop using us, cuss. You can't hang out with your BF." She then sat next to me as I tried to explain to her that, cuss of timetable changes, we can only hang out on certain days. But she wasn't having any of it. She then aced distant and intentionally tried to alienate me from the group as the others wanted to play a game, and Sarah said out loud and to my face, "Oh, make sure James doesn't get to play." Then Sarah's other friend, we'll call her Claire, she then said, "James, why are you using us? Are we not good enough for you?" This then started a lot of rude remarks from the pair of them, stating that they wished I never got with my BF cuss he is pulling us apart. They ended up calling us a pair of fucking F slurs. By that point, it was already time for my lesson, but I left the moment she said that, and now looking back, I realized she had been a fake friend to me the whole time at college. So now I'm thinking of, I was wrong to see my BF more and not see my other friends. AMI, the AH. Story 89. AMI, the AH, for not wanting to pay £1,500 so that my dad can work out of my bedroom closet? Recently, I, 23M, made the decision to drop out of university. This was due in part to the fact that I didn't find it intellectually stimulating, but also because my nan was having some housing trouble. That situation deteriorated and, long story short, I find myself moving in with my dad, 50M. Me and my dad have had a rocky relationship, mainly because we lived together before, and he has a very particular vision for his home. If anyone disrupts that vision, then he kind of explodes. Now, I don't have much of a choice of where I live, and I'm very appreciative that he's offering me a room. I was also quite excited to stop moving about, as I've done so about 4 times in the last few months, and having an opportunity to start a career would excite me. Not to mention we've been getting along a lot better recently. But my excitement kinda died when I was told what his vision for our situation was. My dad has been very honest that he has a single room and, considering that my brother might be moving in, he wants to split a fairly big room into 2 smaller bedrooms. Okay, that makes sense and I was willing to pay for it, assuming my brother reimbursed me for half when he arrives. Thing is, that might not be happening for a year, or in my opinion at all, but my dad still wants the work done ASAP. This is because he wants to use the extra room, which can only be accessed through my room, to work in. Effectively, he expects me to pay £1,500 so that he can work out of a closet in my bedroom. My dad only requires a laptop to work, and has already admitted that he could work in the kitchen, though he did mention it would be a hassle. Now it's his house, and I understand that he has the final say, but I feel like I have a right to be a little miffed at his decision process here. I mean, I'm already paying to have his attic redone, which I'm happy to do because it's mainly my stuff going up there, but I'm also expected to pay for all of this, so that I have the right to pay him rent for a room I'm going to have zero privacy in. I'm thinking about just telling him that me moving in on a long-term basis is the wrong idea, and that I'll just try to move out ASAP, because I just don't feel welcome in his home anymore. It just feels like he's purposefully made the situation as unappealing to me as possible. Am I the AH? Or am I right in thinking this is a little crazy?